All right. Hello, everyone. Good evening, and welcome to the City Commission meeting of December 12th, 2023. I'm your Mayor, Chris Villa, and I call this meeting to order. Val, please call the roll.
Commissioner Penny?
Here.
Commissioner Curry?
Here.
Commissioner Daniels?
Here.
Commissioner Johnson? Here. Mayor Villa?
Here. And at this time, I'll remind the audience to mute your cell phones or any electronic devices that you may have. And I'll ask you to please stand for the invocation led by Commissioner John Danio and continue standing afterwards for the Pledge of Allegiance.
R-E-N.
And there were shepherds living out in the fields nearby, keeping watch over their flocks at night. An angel of the Lord appeared to them, and the glory of the Lord shone around them, and they were terrified. But the angel said to them, "Do not be afraid. I bring you good news that will cause great joy for all the people. Today in the town of David, a Savior has been born to you. He is the Messiah, the Lord. This will be a sign to you. You will find a baby wrapped in cloths and lying in a manger." Suddenly a great company of the heavenly host appeared with the angel, praising God and saying, "Glory to God in the highest heaven, and on earth peace to those on whom his favor rests." Please pray with me. Father God, I just had a strong conviction to read those words, God, and I'm guessing there are more than a few of us that maybe needed to hear them. Tonight, sometimes we get caught up in the distractions of life during the holiday season especially, and I just ask that you would keep us focused on the reason for the season. God, from the cradle to the cross, you have a plan of redemption for each and every one of us. And I just ask that we would be warriors in the battle and do your work. And God, I just pray for all those that are hurting this holiday season, myself included. You know our hearts and you know our hurts. And we just lay it all to you, God. Be with us this meeting, and we pray in your name. Amen.
Amen. And now for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thanks, Chris. Thank you, Commissioner Danio. Appreciate those words.
Yes, thank you.
All right, now we're going to move to our public comments. This is the audience's opportunity to talk to the City Commission about anything not on our agenda tonight. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak? Yes, sir.
I'm sir.
What?
I'm sir.
You are the sir, Mr. Legary. You know the drill.
Jim Legary, 342 Burley. I have a question. I wonder what we have to do to put garbage cans by the bus stops. That's number one. Two, I have just come from the book depository at the Y. Mm-hmm. There has been probably 400 books delivered by some people. Which means that the aisles are like overflowing. So all of the cheap citizens around could go there and get a holiday gift for nothing. Or you don't have to be cheap, just go and get some. It's driving the people to distraction. And I want to say that the last several times I've been at the Y, there's a lot of activity going on. That's very nice to see. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Legary. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak to the City Commission about anything not on our agenda tonight? Seeing none, I will close public comments and we'll move to number 3, which is the approval of the minutes. We have minutes from November 28, 2023, regular City Commission meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Second.
We have a motion from Vice Mayor Penny and a second from Commissioner Danio. I'll open it up to the public. Would anybody like to comment on the minutes? Seeing none, I will close public participation. We have a motion and a second. Any debate? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Now we're moving to our consent agenda, items 1 through 4. Before we begin, I am going to poll number 1 for further discussion and debate. Would any other commissioner like to pull any item on the consent agenda? Okay. The action proposed is stated for each item on the consent agenda. Unless a city commissioner removes an item from the consent agenda, no discussion on individual items will occur, and a single motion will approve all items. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak on any item on the consent agenda tonight? Seeing none, I will close public participation, and now we will consider consent agenda items 2 through 4. Do we have a motion for approval?
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve 2 through 4 on the consent agenda.
We have a motion for approval of the consent agenda 2 through 4 from Commissioner Curry and a second from Commissioner Johnson. No discussion is needed. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Now we'll take up number 1, which is Resolution 2023-R-78. And I have some questions for staff on this. What this has to do with is the Mirage Pond over at the development of Mirage Pond. And this has been a work in progress for many, many years, the development and also the pond, or what some people call the lake there. And for the public's knowledge, a little background there is that there was a development that was approved many years ago, and then the economy didn't do too well, so it was put on the back burner. And then the developer several years ago came to the city and asked if they could build out the pond even more and to build it more like a lake to be able to mine the shell. And so the city, we had a stormwater project in our stormwater master plan, and so it played into that. And so when we looked at the master plan, the idea was we would have to purchase that land for several $100,000 to build what is there now. Instead, the developer said, we will go ahead and build this if you allow us to mine the shell and sell it. So we did that. And what ended up happening from that is that the 3 cul-de-sacs off of Anniston used to, and I know this very well firsthand because I live on Anniston. And before that pond was made into what I call a lake now, it's not an official lake, but before that was built, those cul-de-sacs would flood in a 10-minute rain. It would always have standing water. The water wasn't going anywhere. After that was built out, there has been virtually no flooding. And other than in the 500-year flood, of course, many areas flooded, as we all are aware. But for the most part, the rainstorms are not flooding that area now. And so, the city, the estimate back in, I think, 2010 from the Stormwater Master Plan was $1 million to take a hold of this project, to do this project. We ended up not spending any money out of our pocket other than to attach the cul-de-sacs to the lake. It was built for us in exchange for credits when the development was going to be made. And so it was an amazing collaboration to reduce flooding and to not spend our own money doing it, and it's been a success. Tonight, what we have before us is to continue on to that plan of now put in the infrastructure to connect the lake with Flomish, Alabama, and Timber Trail, which was originally called for in the master plan. So that leads me to some of my questions, and I don't know if it would be appropriate, Mr. Forte, if I direct it to you or Mr. Walker. But one question that I had is in our packet, I wanted to know more about the local node peak stages.
That's probably an Antoine question,
Oh, good, Antoine's here.
maybe?
In the stormwater master plan, when it talked about the differences it would make, we talk about mean annual, pre and post.
Right.
And when we look at these numbers, they're when you look at the post numbers, for instance, let's look at Flomish Street near Selma Ave, which is where this project would affect. The mean annual pre is 5.48. The post is 5.12. So that difference is what, 0.4? Are those inches? And inches over what amount of area? Are you aware? Because it wasn't in the packet. Thank you, Mr. Curry. The floor is yours.
No problem. Antoine Curry, Public Works. I don't have the information, but that's a master plan. That means it doesn't go into details. What we have, and I don't have it with me, is the permits that shows the improvements to the area. I'm confident it will help, but when you get 11 inches of rain, I don't think much is going to help in one day. So it's a good project. It's not only taking water, it's improving some of the infrastructure. Some of our pipes are old. We have pipes that's 24-inch connected to a brick manhole, comes out at 18-inch. There's a lot of infrastructure needs that's part of this project also. So I don't have the information that you're asking me right now. I have to go to the permit
And I apologize for putting you on the spot like this because it wasn't in the packet, and so what I've reviewed, and let me be clear too, is that I have supported this project. About a year, maybe even 2 years ago, we all voted to have Mead Hunt actually perform engineering on this specific project, and I voted in favor of that. Now, when I look at spending the additional $308,049, here's where my thought process is. If we're talking about less than 0.4 of an inch, and look, I live in this area. I know that, and well, before I go there, let me ask you a question. On Flomish near Selma Avenue, are we keeping track across the city of where flooding is, how much flooding is happening, or are we just anecdotally knowing where that is?
No, we know where the trouble spots is. When it's around inlets, where pipe is not sufficient, where your pipe is rusted and it doesn't flow, where you have different size pipes in the area, that's 24, collecting 24, but it's only discharging at 18.
18, yeah.
Big difference. It floods it backs up, water backs up.
Or the tide is high and it can't move out?
No, tide is high. We're too far from the tide to affect this area.
On that project?
Not this project. This project doesn't go beyond the area of Selma, Alabama, and Flomish. It doesn't. It
Right.
collects the water from there, takes it to the pond, to the lake or pond, the big pond, and then it doesn't go to the river except in severe storms where it tops. This pond, I've never seen it even overtopping. That means it's functioning fine and will never dump somewhere else, which is the ditches on the west side of the development.
So what he's saying is if it gets so bad and so high and it pops off, it would go into that northwest canal and eventually make its way down to LPGA and eventually make it out
Right.
or not into the river. But typically, if it doesn't get that bad, the tide surge doesn't affect that particular stormwater area.
Yes.
Okay. And thank you very much for that, Antoine. I have a question, actually, before you sit down, I have a question for you. So in our stormwater fund, we have duck bills, Riverside Drive at $400,000 budgeted. So how many duck bills is that, $400,000?
5.
5? Okay.
But those.
And are we in need of more duck bills?
To be honest with you, yes and no. Yes, we need the 5 that we're talking about, because that's the area that floods Riverside. That's between 2nd Street and 5th, between 2nd and 5th, in front of the Mirage. Do we need it more? Of course, we can use it anywhere that you have a outfall into the river. But the outfall, the duckbills is not the permanent solution. There's other problem, conveyance of water on Riverside Drive.
Right.
And of course, the storm surge.
Right.
We originally, when we were doing the duckbills, we were thinking about 11 or 12, but due to limitation of funding, we said 5,
Right.
which is up in the critical area.
And Mr. Forte, you might have to ask Michelle for this, but in an email yesterday, I asked if, I know that the duck bills are part of our appropriations that we're seeking from the state. Do you know if these funds in here, the 400,000, is that the full price as if we did not get the appropriations, or is that our match that we were anticipating to get the appropriations?
Michelle, did we
Do you know?
add this money this year?
The 400,000 was approved in the budget for 24, it's not.
For the full project, I mean.
How many duckbills will that buy?
No, she doesn't know. It's 5.
Five. So the 400,000 will get, and how much did we request from the appropriations?
About 760, because we bid it already before, and it was 640.
Right.
That was 2 years ago.
So figure that's half of what we think all of the duckbills would cost if we get the other pot of money from the.
So this budgeted is what we will spend, even if we get the appropriations, it's just going to be our match, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
50/50, that's what we
Yep,
asked for.
50/50, perfect. And that's a good request for appropriations. So where I am headed with this is, Commission, I think that it's never too late to make a right decision. And when I look at the facts here, I do not see a decrease in flooding of the proposed locations here that is going to be any type of meaningful. And what I mean by that is a start of $308,000. Now, there may be more, well, let me ask you, will there be more that will have to pay for in connection to this specific item after this infrastructure is put in?
No.
Okay.
Well,
So,
this is
Mr. Ford,
just the infrastructure on the site. This doesn't include the infrastructure on Flomish in Alabama.
Oh, no,
Correct.
there is, it includes it.
The 300,000?
Yeah, it includes collecting some water from Flomish, Alabama, and Anniston,
But that 300,000 is paying for the infrastructure up to those pipes?
inside and outside, yes.
okay. So the point still remains, and I'll save it for, well, no, I'm going to say it now, is that where I'm at is I would rather spend this $308,000 in a dozen other ways that you can think of, Antoine, that needs it more than this. Because I just don't believe that the need is great enough there to do this project for $308,000. And I understand that I have supported this in the past, but I think we shouldn't throw good money at bad. And I think that it's a way that we can take that money and fund the rest of the duck bills that you say that we need, not only through the appropriations process, but also have that in our next budget, possibly even do a budget amendment sooner if staff can come up with that. So that's where I'm headed on this, and so I'll open it up if anyone else has any other questions for staff. Yes, sir.
Antoine, you said in the report, the 4.8 and the 5.2, whatever the numbers, that was inches? You're sure that's not feet?
No.
It says inches.
It says inches?
Yeah.
Okay.
The issue is that's a master plan again.
Right.
It's not a site-specific.
Okay.
I don't have the data right now, but
Okay.
it's
Antoine, are you saying it's 4 inches or 4/10 of an inch?
Tenths.
4/10 of an inch.
Tenths.
Doesn't sound like a whole lot.
Not even a full inch.
Right.
See, the anomaly is
But-
most of the stormwater master plan projects for the cost are all going to have minimal impact.
Yes.
And that's the frustrating part. No matter what project we do is going to cost hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars for very low impact. I don't know if you remember one time Andrew Giannini was here and he was talking about tenths of an inch on another,
Yep.
big project. And I get what you're saying, Mayor, I don't disagree at all. Maybe that money could go toward more duck bills and round that project out, which I think the duck bills might have a more positive impact on the system, not necessarily, I don't think I could put my finger on an area and say, it's going to do better there, but I
Agreed.
think it will help the system. But the public wants to see us do something. So we got to do something.
I agree, and I think doing something starts with us saving $308,000 and using it better, Mr. Fuerte. I believe that we could do a lot of things, including cleaning out the ditches, as we've discussed before, hiring out a contract to do that, and I'm sure that would cover it for at least this year, and several others. So I just believe that this commission, we've always been very tight on our money, watch every single dollar and cent, and I think that this money can be spent better, and there's never a time that's too late to do this, and so that's where I'm at. Yes, sir.
Antoine, this is a very unfair question, and I don't know the answer, but what's the incremental improvement with the duck bills? Very insignificant, I would imagine.
No. Actually, the duck bill is gonna prevent the water from coming back. That's the only purpose of the duck bill. It doesn't help with anything except the water, preventing the water from coming out, from coming up the.
It's just going to stop the river water from coming in. It's not going to stop the storm water from flooding the road.
That's right.
It'll give you some capacity.
It's
Yeah.
it's like
Right.
the-
But I guess my question is, and we're talking about tenths of an inch over square acres or square miles, that's a lot of water. You can't just think of this much right here. It's over a neighborhood.
But we don't know how far that is, because I asked, and it's not in the packet of over how much area. So whether it's an acre, whether it's the whole project, whatever it is, but, at the same time, is 0.4 inch going to stop it from flooding the road? I would venture to say no. I know every little bit helps, but I just want to make sure that our dollars are spent for the biggest bang for our buck. And I think even cleaning out canals and storms, and I'm sure that you have in mind several projects that we don't have the funds to be able to tackle. So I just feel very heavy on it. And let me say that this is a change of heart for me. I voted yes a year or two ago to move forward with this engineering on this project, but I had to say my piece. So is there any other further questions for staff from the commission? Okay. At this time, thank you, Mr. Curry. At this time, we'll open this up to the public. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on this resolution tonight? Seeing none, I'll close public participation. And I will open the floor for a motion. I would hope that, I don't know if we would need to deny this, Mr. Simpson, if I were to have my way tonight, but would we need to deny it or take no action? I know it dies if there's a lack.
Guys, for lack of action, and do we need to turn down, like?
If we turn it down, it means they can't come back.
I don't know if that's true for financial issues.
Okay. So either way, so
Why don't you just, can they just table it indefinitely?
Well, you table it until it's brought off the table. So somebody would have to bring it off the table. Is there no notice requirement?
No.
No, so.
So you can table it indefinitely, and then if somebody says, hey, bring that back, we'll schedule it to come back. This way it doesn't die, it's just tabled.
okay.
I'm going to make a motion to approve it.
Okay, we have a motion on the table we have a motion to approve the resolution 2023-R-78. Is there a second? I'll second. All right, we have a motion and a second, and just to be clear, this is to approve moving forward with this project. All right, with that, we already opened it up to public comment. We'll open it up for debate. Maker of the motion?
I hear your passion, I hear your concerns, but I'm not smarter than an engineer. I'm not an engineer. This is part of a master plan we've been kicking down the road for 10, 15 years. One of the biggest complaints that I get, besides speeding and drugs, is my neighborhood's flooding. And this project has been planned and planned and planned. We have the opportunity to complete a plan. The improvement, although it might be insignificant, like you said, every little bit helps. And if we table this and we kick it down the road, we're going to spend $300,000 in engineering to figure out if we can get more duck bills, and it's going to be 5 years before we can implement it. It's budgeted, it's shovel-ready. I say let's move forward and do it.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. The seconder gets to go next.
I agree because I know the duck bills are a great thing, but really, as far as I can tell, the only thing duck bills are for is to help us at a high tide, to keep the river from coming back when the tide is there.
Correct, yep. And thank you. And so in my debate, what I would like to say is that, and I agree with you, we got to do something, right? We need to do projects. I just want to make sure that they're the right projects, and these specific areas, the 3 specific areas, are not flooding currently. And you're not receiving phone calls from those areas saying that my stuff is flooding. Now, what this project did do is alleviate that flooding. The biggest part has been accomplished for those 3 cul-de-sacs right off of Anniston, right by the pond. So it's a success that this happened. It's a successful partnership that the city took place. I just want to, this will open up $300,000 that we can look to do any other project that I think is better. And I'm not an engineer either, but I read the reports, and the reports were not impressive to me, and I'm changing my mind on it, and that's tough to do. But when I looked at the facts, that's where I'm at. So I've said enough tonight. We'll hear from Commissioner Curry.
I
Do you have any debate? Commissioner Daniel, do you have anything to debate?
When we talked earlier, what was the take on these types of things that they never seem to, what did you tell me again? To understand, because it sounded like this was like a long-term thing, and it was like, it finally got to where we're moving forward.
The mayor mentioned that this has been in play for a very long time. Back many, many years ago, it was part of the master plan that was written, I think, 2014, maybe?
2010, yeah.
2010?
Yeah.
Really? Thank you. So it's just something that you try to chip away at. And like I said, I just want to see us do something, whether it's duckbills or this pond, or I want to show the public we're hearing their complaints and we're doing something. It may have little effect. Everything may have little effect. But I want the commission to just,
But let me counter that. We are doing a lot.
We are.
And to take that away from staff is not fair,
No,
because
I'm
we
talking
are
about
doing a
capital.
lot, and we're fighting for appropriations to do this.
Right.
And this project does not say that we're doing anything extra. In fact, I guarantee you, people won't even see us doing this
I'm
work.
not talking about this problem, I'm talking about any project.
I understand, and I agree with you that we should do work, and we will, Mr. Forte, but I won't let it stand that it says that we just want to show them that we're doing something, because this means that we will be able to do something more substantial, number one, and number two, we are doing something. We are going for duckbills, we're doing other things that
Either.
they may not see, but I just want to be clear about that. I know you feel the same way, but I just, for the record, before these other 2 commissioners come up with their own opinion, I want to make sure that they know we're not sitting on our hands.
Absolutely not. Absolutely
And
not.
what I'm proposing is to do a different project.
And I would agree with you 100%. If we don't do this, let's plan another one right away.
Right,
Right away.
right. And
Okay.
I agree with that. I just wanted to be clear with that. Sorry, I stepped on your.
No, that helps me because, I'm the kind of the rookie, even though it's 7 years in the books, but, he's the man in charge, and I value
I'm
his
not the
opinion.
stormwater guy, though.
No, I know, but
Well, you're the one in charge.
I know,
You're his boss.
yeah. You better be nice.
I do whatever the majority of you tell me to do.
That's right.
Okay, I think I like.
Okay. All right. Commissioner Curry, anything to add?
Hey, Mayor,
Vice Mayor? Yes.
before you go to a vote, and Anton, I don't know what the timing is for that contract that's on site, but would you be more comfortable if we move this item to a work session and had a stormwater engineer come in and talk to us about it and get somebody that knows what they're talking about?
I would definitely be open to
Yeah,
that
me
if
too.
I would
Commissioner.
prefer that.
Yeah.
Why don't we table it to a work session?
Would the maker of the motion withdraw his motion?
Yeah, my concern is that when government says we're going to do something immediately, that means 2025 or after. And you're not going to see any impact for $300,000 more than that much, no matter what we do. I think the longer we wait, the more expensive it is. I have no problem waiting to hear a civil engineer tell us the effect. But I think we have a plan, and we need to stick to the plan and pick away at it. How do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? And we just need to just do that. Yes, I had a second. So I will withdraw the motion, but I want this to happen. See, we're not even going to meet again until January, so we're already into 2024. So I don't want to kick this down the road, because if we have a workshop, it's going to be in February, then we won't vote on it until March. And isn't there a contractor there doing stuff now?
They're beginning to start the work. I don't know if they're in this area, but that was part of the cost benefit, is that there wouldn't be a mobilization cost because they're already on site, or a reduced mobilization cost because they're already on site.
Yeah, so, I mean, to mobilize that equipment, it's probably $50,000 to move that kind of equipment here.
About that?
Yeah.
Well, then don't withdraw.
So,
Also, maintenance of traffic, mobilization, and
so I'm gonna keep my motion. If it fails, it fails, but I think we need to move forward and do something. Sitting around doing nothing is unexcusable.
I can agree with that.
All right, he does not withdraw his motion, so we are going to need to take a vote. So all those in favor of the motion for moving forward with spending the $308,049.75 for Resolution 2023-R-78 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Oppose. So the motion passes 3-2. All right. Now moving to our regular agenda, Resolution 2023-R-82. Mr. Simpson.
Resolution number 2023-R-82 by title only for first and only reading. A resolution of the City Commission of the City of Holly Hill, Florida, amending the City of Holly Hill's purchasing policy, providing for legislative findings and intent, repealing all resolutions in conflict herewith, providing for authority to the city manager for implementing administrative actions, and providing for scrivener's errors, conflicts, severability, and providing for an effective date.
Mr. Forte.
Yeah, I'm going to read the staff report, and then we can talk about it more. So in March of 2022, based upon an expert consultant's review of the city's purchasing policy to ensure compliance with federal and state procurement standards, the City Commission approved an update to the policy. Currently, due to significant increases in costs of goods and services, staff is recommending updating the routing for purchase limits to the following. No quotes required for under $5,000, where previously it was under $2,500. Informal quotes required between $5,000 and $25,000, where previously it was between $2,500 and $5,000. And three formal quotes required between $25,000 and $50,000, where previously it was $5,000 and $25,000. All purchases $50,000 and greater require formal solicitation and City Commission approval, where previously it was $25,000. Other charges included in the updated policy are clarifying single and sole source requirements for federally funded purchases, reducing from 15 to 7 the number of business days for single sole source advertisements, which is what the policy used to be, but it had been changed, updating purchase order procedures for the new Tyler ERP system, inclusion of the Florida Statute Chapter 119 verbiage, a blanket purchase order definition update, and other formatting changes. The city's purchasing policy 2018 R30 was adopted in May 18th, and the policy was amended in Resolution 2020 R35, and on July 28th, 2020, Resolution 21 R70. Those are really not nearly as important. I don't need to read all of those. So what we found over the last couple of years, as inflation has kicked in, the staff, primarily the public works staff, is having difficulty getting projects off the ground because they've got to go through an extended purchasing procedure. So we're trying to raise the bar on this, and this has been compared to several other cities that are basically doing the same amount. They've changed their purchasing policies to reflect the same things here. So instead of going out to bid for something over $25,000, we'll go out to bid if it's over $50,000. But these items are not just pulled off the cuff. These are items that are in your budget that the commission has approved during the budget process, but instead of bidding it, we would be able to purchase it. And in that case, for something like between $5,000 and $25,000, we would still get informal quotes, and between $25,000 and $50,000, we would still get formal quotes. So we're still getting quotes to get the best price, but we're raising the dollar amount to do that.
Thank you, Mr. Forte. I'll open it up for questions. I have some questions on this. And just for clarification, even though you said it again, there was a citizen concern today that texted me about making the mention that commissioners will no longer have authority over these purchases, that it's going to be delegated to you. And as I know, and we've discussed, can you clarify that again, that everything is budgeted that you would be purchasing? It's just about the bidding?
Yeah, the vast
Process.
majority of any purchases that are made are typically in the budget process. We don't go off spending $25,000 on stuff that's not in the budget. Now, there may be occasions where that does come up, where we need to spend money, but typically I come back and I'll report that to you.
And I asked you this when we met on this initially, when you presented it to me, and I didn't get a full answer. I don't know if you had time to research it. Is there a requirement to present the purchase to the commission after the fact? If you were to use your purchasing authority?
No.
No?
There's not a requirement for those items. The only requirement to come back to the commission are the ones that go out for bid where the commission selects the lowest bidder.
Okay, and what about in an emergency?
Emergencies are different. During for example, a hurricane, we typically come to you and we waive the procurement policy, and that allows the city manager to make emergency purchases to respond to the disaster. Most of the time, that deals with contracting for debris removal, things of that nature, or if I have to purchase emergency generators, things that are going to respond to an emergency.
Okay, because my question is would it be prudent when reviewing the purchase policy, and if this happens in other municipalities, that there should be a requirement if something is not bidded to let the commission know?
If you'd like, we could add language that says anything over the 25,000 will be reported to the commission, even if it's after the fact. We can do that.
Okay. The other thing is, another question I had was, how many problems are we having with this current process? I know that you said that is it becoming more prevalent?
I would say it's probably a bigger problem at the lower end than it is at the upper end. We don't go out and we're not bidding a lot of big projects. And Michelle, you can come up and help if you have any feedback from what you're hearing.
If you'd just like to come to the stand, this is more.
So a lot of the frustration, I mean, you can't repair the roof on a pavilion within the amounts that we have here without having to go out for bid or formal quotes. So and these projects, because they are what they are, the contractors don't want to put in a bid for a $5,000 roof repair. They don't have the time. They don't want to waste the time to put bids in for that, even informal bids. So that's why we're trying to raise it so that we can go out and get informal quotes in order to get some competitive pricing to get some of those projects done.
Okay. Do you have anything to add to that, Michelle?
I wish Antoine hadn't left because he has commented that on the low end, we are finding that vendors don't want to quote the amounts that we're requesting, and really it started with that, but nothing else to add.
Are we talking about the between 5,000 and 25,000, or are we just saying under 25,000?
I'm saying mostly under 25,000.
Okay. Couple other things on page 16 and 17 in the packet. I had a question about single source and sole source. So it says that this can be done, but it has to, if we're using federal funds, and that's key here, that it has to be done during a public emergency. And it says all criteria must be met, and that's one of the criteria, and that is added to the sole source here as well, and it wasn't in there before.
Actually, what was in there was that criteria, but it was clouded that it was intended for federal emergencies. Before, it seemed like you had to meet that criteria all the time. So when we went back to one of the drafts when Ray Hooper was here, that language is intended for, and that's a FEMA requirement, that criteria has to be met for federal disasters in order to go with single source.
So
or sole
if
source.
we have federal funds at all for any project, it means that it has to be bidded out no matter what, unless it was during a public emergency.
Correct.
That's interesting. And is that a federal law? That's a state law?
Pretty
just-
sure it came out of the state law.
I just found it interesting that they are making us bid everything, no matter what it is, unless it has to do with a public emergency. Okay. Next question is, or comment is on page 40, chapter 15. And I don't know if Scott, if you're paying attention here, might be a question for you. So it's page 40, chapter 15 of the purchasing policy. And I'm scrolling to it too. There was, it basically stopped the language that's being added. I think it might be just an error.
P card?
I'm scrolling to it.
Page 40,
Yeah, page 40, so chapter 15, procurement and fuel cards. So we added in there administrators, the city, or administers the city's procurement card, P card program for the purpose of expediting small purchases in the most cost-effective and efficient method, purchases of goods and services, and it just ends. So it's not a full sentence, purchases of goods and services. And then the rest of that sentence is X'd out. So like staff to figure out what that sentence was going to say.
I will do that. I will
Okay.
take care of that.
Thank you. And then on page 41, just a question is chapter 15.3. I had a question of why, if we are raising the limit on everything, in this one, we're lowering the P card and fuel card use from 5,000 to 2,500. Was there a reason for that you know?
It's my preference to have a purchase order instead of using the P card.
Okay, so
Years-
do not use P card.
years ago, we used to do purchase orders that, Ace Hardware, for example, we do a blanket purchase order, so employees
Not
would
yet.
go down. What's that?
Not yet. Not right now.
No, years ago.
Oh, years ago.
Years ago, we used to have blanket purchase orders. That's what I'm saying. Years ago, we
Yeah.
had it.
Okay.
And an employee would go down there and they'd make a purchase and Ace Hardware would keep track of it, and then at the end of the month, they would submit a bill. Well, now they're going down there with their P card and they're buying things, and I think there's better controls using the blanket purchase order than the P card. I don't want to have receipts lost. I don't want to have receipts turned in late. So
My only
We-
question is like the Florida League of Cities, when Val does it, doesn't she use the P card to book that? It
Yeah.
says that that's used. Well, with that, I mean, couldn't that alone trip that 2,500 and then what she would have to?
No, because it's done on each individual.
Oh, it's done individual
Yeah.
payments. Okay. All right.
Yeah. So it should, and if so, if we came to that point where it was all lumped
Override it.
together, it would be on my P card.
Okay, good. Thank you for that. Are there further questions for staff on the purchasing policy? All right, seeing it. Thank you very much, Michelle. All right. Since there are no further questions, we'll open it up to the public. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on the purchasing policy tonight? Seeing none, I'll close public participation. I'll open the floor for a motion.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve from Commissioner Curry and a second for Vice Mayor Penny. Any debate? I just will say, and this is no reflection on you or your staff, Mr. Forte, I will be voting no on this. I think that the process is hard for a reason. I think that there's checks and balances, not saying that you have done anything appropriate, but I have to think in the next administration or the administration after that. So my no vote, I want to be clear, is no reflection on our current staff. It's just what I believe. I don't think that we should make it easier to not get quotes. So that's my stance on it. Is there any further debate? We'll take a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, oppose. The motion carries 4-1. Eventually, I'll be on the winning side of one of these tonight. All right. We'll move to Number 2, Resolution 2023-R-83. Mr. Simpson.
Resolution number 2023-R-83, by title only, for first and only reading. A resolution of the City Commission of the City of Holly Hill, Volusia County, Florida, amending the fee schedule for the fiscal year 2023-2024, providing for severability and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. Mr. Forte.
The staff is proposing to increase the community development and the finance department fees. As part of the review of the fee schedule during the implementation of the EnerGov module for the community development, staff identified 4 specific areas necessary to better align fees with services provided. In addition, the finance department is proposing adding a merchant fee on all credit card purchases. In the fiscal year, the city paid $154,000 in fees on payments totaling $5,228,700 made using credit cards. And I want to specifically call this one out to you. It's very important that I make this clear. What we're recommending is that probably since its inception, well, shortly after its inception, we didn't charge the customer the credit card fee. The city absorbed that credit card fee. And the purpose of doing that is we wanted more and more people to use the credit card to pay their utility bill rather than letting it lapse where their water was being turned off. So it was a means of convenience for them to do it. Well, over time, a lot more people are using it and a lot larger water consumers are using it to the tune of it costing the city $155,000 to pay credit card fees. So in the resolution, I added back credit card fees for utility bills, that if you don't want to do it, remove that. If you do want to do it, leave it in, but I wanted you to make a conscious decision to remove it. So I want to make sure that we were clear on that. The other fees were primarily for the building department. It's the plan reviews fees, the annual sign renewal fees, the technology fee, lien search fees, the merchant fee of 3%, and that would be on people coming in getting permits and things of that nature. So I want to be sure you talk about that utility, the credit card fee on utility bills.
Thank you. You have a question, Commissioner Daniel?
Just credit card, not check card, not auto
It
debits?
doesn't go to
or-
debit card, just credit card, right?
Yeah, it would be
Does it go on
either
debit?
a card.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Online.
Credit
What
and
about the
debit.
auto draft type scenario? That's an option too, though, right?
There's several options. There's credit card, debit card, cash, check, bank draft, going through the place up there on LPJ and Nova,
Amscott.
Amscott. There's a number of ways of making a pay. You can call it in through the 800 number, so there's a number of different ways you can do it.
All right. I have a few questions specifically about the 3% fee that is proposed here to the end user. Michelle, can you please come to the podium? And Mr. Forte, you may be able to chime in and answer these questions. So have we always paid the credit card fees, like always? I mean, since the
I think
inception?
initially, we had the customer paying fees, and at some point, we made a decision that the city would pay it. And I think, you can't quote me on when it was.
Right.
My understanding is that it happened during COVID.
That's what I was going to say.
That's what I
pre-
thought.
Yeah.
I thought it was during this
That's what I thought.
term, yeah. Okay, and my second question is, and you may not know this off the top of your head, but is the $154,000 in credit card fees that we currently pay, is that only from citizens or businesses paying us with credit cards? Meaning, you know, online, I pay my water bill. Right now, I'm not paying the 3%. If this goes through, I would pay 3% extra to cover that credit card fee. Is that primarily where the $5.2 million that we take in from credit cards are coming in?
Yes, but we have some very large commercial accounts. The condominium,
Oh,
You
yeah.
have Marina Grand, you have Angelica, you have Metra. There's a number of large consumers that are now paying by credit card, and that adds up quite a bit.
the condominium, their invoice is averaging about $55,000, and so we're not recovering the 3% that we're losing on that.
You know, when you buy a car.
Imagine the points they're getting.
Yeah.
$55,000 is what we're paying for Marina Grand?
No, that's what they're
They're
paying
paying us.
a month.
Oh, a month, okay.
Right.
Yeah, so
thought you meant-
3% on top of that, we're paying.
We're paying the
Yeah.
3% on their behalf.
Okay.
So it's gonna cost them an extra $1,650 just to use a card, huh?
Write a check.
So,
Or
Yeah.
bank draft.
Yeah, I pay through my
Mine's auto pay.
online banking, so.
when I look at this, I look at $154,000 that could be recoverable, but at the same time, I'm not on auto draft like you guys. I think, did you just say you're?
No,
on
I
auto?
pay mine every month
Oh,
through my bank.
Me too. And I'm paycheck to paycheck. It's no secret.
Yeah,
Any
there's no
dollar
fee on that.
amount, what?
No
No,
fee
there's
for you.
no fee on what I do.
Correct, on bank draft.
Yeah, there's no
I'm
fee.
just saying, for bank draft, for me, I budget everything each time, and so I don't have a automatic withdrawal for my water bill. I got to make sure everything's in line. And I know that that's how a lot of our citizens are.
Right, but you're not getting a
And-
fee for that. If you're
No,
paying-
currently,
right.
no, I'm not. But if this goes through, I would.
No, only if you're paying with your credit card.
If you're paying through your
Correct.
bank,
And I'm paying through my debit card.
no, I'm doing my online banking, paying my bills.
Right.
So, and look, and maybe we, I think, come at this from a different standpoint. If the bill is $55,000 for Marina Grande, maybe we look at a differentiation between that. I mean, we're paying a lot of money for them to be able to pay that. But let me get the third question out, is it easier for staff, for a customer to pay online instead of at City Hall, for your staff? Is it easier for our staff if a customer pays online or comes in and stands in line?
It's easier if they pay online because there is no entry involved in our staff, for our
Okay.
staff to do.
Thank you. And the point to that is when we talk about a convenience fee, I think it's a convenience to the city to be able to have this paid online. If you take 1,000 people a month that are paying on debit card, or however many, probably more than that, and they come in to pay here, that's going to be a lot harder on staff than what this is. I understand convenience fee can mean you can sit at home and do it. So you can see where I'm going with this, is I would like to take out the 3% out of the fee schedule, and that's where I'm headed with this, but this is questions, so do you have something to add?
Can I negotiate with you?
Yeah, please do.
When I bought a car one time, they said they'll only do a credit card on the first 5,000. And I don't know if it's possible, and I don't want anybody to commit to this, but what if we said there's no credit card fee for the first $200 of a bill?
Right.
And everything over that, you pay the fee.
Right.
Now, if that's a disaster
That's
to
a
set up in the
nightmare.
system, which it may be,
One and a half.
then
That's not a bad idea. Yes, ma'am.
So in other words, if we, charge this 3%, the monies that are currently being spent, I lost my figures, 150,000, I think it was.
155 round.
We could actually get one or two more employees in there to help for that kind of money. And I understand what you're saying, it's a convenience for the city, but it's also a convenience for the end user. I choose not to pay the fee and not use my debit card. Instead, I go through my bank and pay it. They can drop it off outside in a check or a money order form. There's plenty of ways they can pay their bill without paying the fee, but because they are also receiving the convenience of sitting at home and paying your bill, or sitting at work and paying your bill, I don't think the 3% is too unrealistic, because the citizens that may pay their bill a freeway are basically footing the bill for $155,000 for these convenience fees of other people that are choosing to utilize that way. That is really all I had to say about it.
Thank you,
there is a
Commissioner.
I just wanted to
Daniels.
question,
credit card use too.
the water
right?
bill average, $100?
Didn't the city charge the
150.
credit card?
$150? You're talking $5.
Yeah, $5.
Yeah.
That's a pizza, Johnny.
That's
Maybe
part
a
of a pizza
slice.
these
Has
days.
that gone up?
Yeah,
Has it gone-
everything's gone up. I'm just, I mean,
Okay.
Are we going to discuss this now, or are we just still asking questions?
It's supposed to be questions, but
Oh,
I've
sorry.
allowed comments.
Okay.
You want to ask a question?
No, I was just thinking, we're talking like,
Well, we can
$3 to
debate-
$4
We can
maybe.
debate it. We'll debate it.
Yeah, I mean,
Did
we
you have
started
a
with the
question?
big hit, 15,
No, I'd had
55,000.
had
That's
some
why.
discussion, but I didn't think it was
Okay, we'll
appropriate
save it for
now.
discussion. Any
My
further
bad.
questions for staff from the commission?
Rule breaker.
All right. Just one more thing on the fee schedule is, I just wanted to make it a point that with the lien fee search, that we are still under, by increasing this, we are still under the state average of $85, but our fee is going from 25 to 75.
Mayor, that's a different item.
No, that's in the fee schedule as well, Mr. Forte,
Oh, okay,
and
yeah,
it's
yeah.
also in the next item.
It's in the resolution.
Yes, sir.
But it's in the orange data, right?
Yep, but specifically, I'm speaking to the fee, not the contract with the outside company. But to address that, we are going to be saving staff time. There's 440 lien searches this year that happened, brought in about $11,000. So by increasing this, we should probably bring in an extra $15,000. Just want to make sure that everyone's aware that the bank will be paying this fee, but we are still under the state average. So I appreciate staff listening to that as well. So with that, we will open this up to the public. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to the commission on this item? Seeing none, I'll close public participation, and I'll open the floor for a motion.
Motion to approve as written.
Second.
We have a motion to approve from Vice Mayor Penny, a second from Commissioner Curry. Debate.
I think 3%, if you check closely on many of your restaurant receipts that you go to, you'll see a 3.9% convenience fee for using your credit card. I think it used to be illegal to discriminate between cash and credit, but I guess it's changed because when you look at the bottom, there's tax, convenience fee, tip. I don't think that, it's $155,000 when you round it. It's a lot of money. It's a user fee. Why should the 12 or 13,000 other residents of our city pay an extra $13 a year so someone can use their credit card? I don't think it's fair. I think it's the cost of doing business. And we debated back and forth about, $300,000 for duck bills or this or that. Well, that's half that money right there. I know it can't be used for that, different pot of money,
Different fund, yep.
but still, it's money in the bank. So I think if you're going to, there's so many ways to do it. You can walk in with cash, you can go online, you can do an e-check. You don't have to use your debit card. You can use an electronic check, and there's no fee for an electronic check. So there's no inconvenience to the end user. If you choose to do it, you should pay the price.
Maker of the second.
I've already had my
Discussed, okay.
discussion, so.
I think the big,
Mr. Daniel?
like Roy's always the first one to say, the businesses are big, the big accounts are gonna end up paying the big fees, but personally, I don't use a check card. I mean, I write a check, I come here, I send it here, so it's like you said, if there's one or two ways, and we're strongholding them into the corner saying, you got it, but there's a half a dozen different ways to pay it, so.
Yeah.
We're not telling them they have to use their card and pay the 3%, we're saying, it's a user fee, it's an option. If you don't want to do it, come down, send a check, go online, just, there's other ways to do it, so I'm going to have to vote in favor for it.
Commissioner Johnson?
I kind of agree with that. I don't think it's a good idea to pay it with a credit card. The only reason I've used a credit card mostly is so you're covered for any kind of a problem you might have with a product or something. Because credit, there's going to be other people with credit cards, so it's just something you either got to choose to do it or you don't. And say, if you're going to pay with a credit card, you got to pay the fee.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. Just a clarification question. Is there other ways to pay online after this passes that we will not have to pay for the 3%, as Commissioner Penny stated, other than having to go to AMSCOT, other than having to walk in here with cash or a check?
Yeah, through your bank account, Mayor, because that's what I do.
So an automatic bank draft?
Well,
So you
no,
can't do it on demand?
Can I clarify?
I want you to, please.
I'll just give you my example. Every week, every Monday, I sit down, I do my bills.
Yeah.
I get a bill that comes in. I physically go into my bank account and I say, pay this amount on this date. So it's not automatic. I have to tell it to pay.
That's how mine works.
Online banking, I guess.
Yeah.
But it's automatic.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
not
It's
automatic.
automatic when I tell it
I
to
have
do
to
it.
tell it to. I go in and I say, all right, well, I got my utility bill, it's $168. I go, all right, Palm Coast Utility, $168, pay on December 18th. I hit the send button, and on December 18th, it gets paid.
There's another way you can do it if you want, where it sets up where you're
You can do automatic draft.
automatic. It just, when the
Right,
bill
I
goes
know
to the
that.
bank and they automatically pay it, but then
Yeah.
you don't know how much.
Right.
Yeah, you get a high water bill, and all of a sudden you got,
And you may not be
Bounce.
prepared for it. At Christmas time, you need to wait a week to pay it, so.
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, I have to physically put it in, the amount and the date to be paid.
And most people paying with credit cards, you should be getting 2% cash back on your credit card, or you got the wrong credit card.
That's what, I pay everything with the credit card
Yeah,
because of
because
that.
I always get cash back. So really, it's a net 1%. But what I'll do is, it used to be, like, I have a condo down in New Smyrna. They used to charge 3%, or Duke Energy would charge 3%, so I would just do the check. Well, they stopped charging. Now I do the credit card, because I get the rewards back.
So there's a process. So when this passes for myself to go on our portal and to pay it directly from my bank account and
No, it's on
that,
your bank.
That's on your bank
It's on
account.
your
It's
bank
on your bank
account.
portal.
It's online banking is what it is.
You get your bill either by mail or an email, then you log on to Truist or Wells Fargo, whatever, and there's a drop-down that says Pay Bill, and you have the drop-down of all your bills. You
Huh.
put in the bill, the address, the phone number,
The account.
number, and then you click on it, put the amount in, you click on the calendar, you put the date due.
And a physical check goes to that
Yeah.
company.
Sometimes it does.
Well, now, sometimes they
I'll
do
sh-
it
I'll show you
electronic
how I do it.
sending.
Come in and I'll show you how I do it.
yeah.
Yeah, it's very
Okay.
convenient, because
Oh,
I
it'd
make mine,
ease your life a little
yeah.
if you did online banking.
I make
I
all
mean,
my
it's
bills-
easy enough. I mean, we just have it on a calendar. We go in, pay all the bills at one time off of the card, so, debit card. Okay, all right, with that, is there any further debate or discussion? All right, and just for the record, I will be voting no because of that, not because of the other items.
Have to get bored. They don't have to.
And with that, we'll take a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Oppose. The motion carries 4-1. Now, we'll move to number 3, which is Prop Logics LLC DBA Orange Data Systems Third-Party Lien Search Provider. Mr. Forte. Or do you want to hand it to Mrs. Moore?
Let me pull it up real quick. Okay, so staff is proposing to enter into an agreement with PropLogix LLC, doing business as Orange Data Systems, to fulfill third-party lien search requests. Currently, staff from multiple departments are completing these requests, which takes valuable time from the staff that have to maintain duties of their job. Orange Data Systems automated lien search services is of no cost to the city. Orange Data will charge the third party the fee from the city's fee schedule of $75. They will keep $20 of that and remit $50 to the city for each lien processed. Orange Data provides a streamlined lien search service to over 40 cities and counties in the state of Florida and is a sole source provider utilizing the automated MuniConnect platform.
$55.
Joe, I thought you just said 20 and 50.
Yeah,
2055.
55.
25 and,
20 and 55.
oh, meaning what they're getting?
They get 20, the city gets
Right.
55.
Okay.
So we would more than double what we would get in the past.
We're doing
And,
nothing.
and save staff time, too. Right?
Yes.
440 liens this year, lien searches. Okay, are there any questions for staff? All right. Then we will open this up to the public. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to the commission about this item tonight? Seeing none, I'll close public participation, and I'll entertain a motion for approval.
Mayor, I'll make a motion.
Second.
We have a motion for approval from Commissioner Curry and a second from Commissioner Danio. Mr. Johnson stepped out of the room. Mr. Simpson, do we need to wait for him to vote? Or can he vote when he
You still
gets-
have a quorum.
Can he vote when he gets back, add his vote?
No. I mean,
So it would just be 4-0? Or if,
4-0, or you could wait for him, or he could yell.
it looks like we have the votes here, so we have a motion and a second, and I'm going to be voting yes. I'm going to be on the winning side of this one tonight. Here we go. I hope this
Yeah, here he
changes
is.
my luck. Oh, here he comes. We're going to wait one more second. Yes, sir. As you're walking forward, there's a motion and a second to approve number 3 on the agenda for PropLogix LLC DBA Orange Data Systems, third-party lien search provider. Do you have any debate? No. All right. With that, we'll take a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, the motion carries unanimously. Now moving to our public hearings tonight. Our first one is ordinance 2023-0-3067 for second reading. Mr. Simpson.
Ordinance number 2023-0-3067 by title only for second and final reading. An ordinance of the City of Holly Hill, Florida regulating mobile food vehicles, amending Section 114-904 of the City Code, providing for codification, providing for conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, and providing an effective date.
Thank you very much. Mr. Walker, the floor is yours.
Mayor, Commission, staff does not have any changes since first reading and continues to recommend this item.
Thank you very much, Mr. Walker, and thank you for all your work on this. Are there any questions for staff?
All that time, you didn't have a chance to change it, huh?
We talked about this a lot. We know where you're at, and I will give you debate time too. I know what it feels like to be 4-1. All right, are there any questions? Any questions? Okay, thank you, Mr. Walker. At this time, we'll open this up to the public. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on this item tonight? All right, seeing none, we will close public participation, and I will entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Second.
A motion from Vice Mayor Penny for approval and a second from Commissioner Curry. Now debate. Would you like to say something? I know you weren't here for the first reading.
No.
All right. You said a lot. We know where you're at,
Yeah.
John. We do.
That's okay.
And there's no hard feelings. No hard feelings to it. All right.
Way here, though.
Any further debate? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and take a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed?
Opposed.
The motion carries 4-0.
4 to who?
Oh, sorry, 4-1. Whoops. Thank you for checking me. 4-1. All right, now we'll move to number 2, which is 817 Magnolia Avenue, side setback variance request. Mr. Forte.
Oh, that'll go right, Brian will take care of it.
Okay, Mr. Walker, the floor is yours.
Mayor, Commission, this is a request for a variance at 817 Magnolia Avenue, a variance from the requirements of Section 114-765, which has to do with setbacks. And it requires that principal setbacks in the R3, which is the medium-density single-family zoning district, be a minimum of 7.5 feet from the side property line. And the applicant is making this request in order to construct an addition that will be on the south side of the property. Again, the property is 817 Magnolia Avenue. It's about 100 feet south of Ferndale Street on the east side of Magnolia. Just a couple of background points. The property is part of a plat that was approved by the Holly Hill City Commission on May 16th, 1924. The lot contains a home that was originally built in 1952, and again, it is zoned R3. The existing home is on a lot that's about 5,000 square feet, and again, the side setback is required to be 7.5 feet, but on the south side of the lot, there's an existing home that is only 4.9 feet from the side property line. And the applicant wants to build their addition on the south side of the home and align it with the existing structure that is 4.9 feet from the property line. And since the code requires that structures be 7.5 feet on the side property line, the applicant can't do the addition as desired without the variance. So, in order to grant the variance request, the commission has to find that the request meets the requirements of Section 82317. Now, these criteria are not unique to Holly Hill. They're similar to criteria that you will find, perhaps worded a little bit differently, in almost every jurisdiction throughout the state. And that's because they share a commonality. They've all been established by state and local laws as well as case law. So that's why you'll find that wherever you go in the state of Florida, you'll see these criteria. Some are almost exact, and we have that criteria as well. So the first criteria that is under consideration has to do with special conditions and circumstances existing on the property that are particular to the land, the structure, or the building involved as distinguished from the applicant themselves, and which are not applicable to other land, structures, or buildings in the same zoning district. Well, the home was built again in 1952. It's 4.9 feet from the south property line. This was done prior to the city adopting the land development regulations in 1993, and so that criteria, staff feels, is met. The second criteria is that special conditions and circumstances did not result from the actions of the applicant. And obviously, they did not. Again, the home was built in 1952, prior to the city's land development regulations, and so the applicant did not build this home 4.9 feet from the property line. So that criteria is met. The third criteria, that granting the variance requested will not confer on the applicant any special privilege that is denied by this subpart to other lands, buildings, or structures in the same zoning district. So the lot that we have is considered to be legal non-conforming. And construction on legal non-conforming lots is governed by Section 114-34. Your staff report says -31. 31 is a mistake. I apologize for that. It's 114-34, and that's titled Nonconformity. And it states in part that in any classification, principal and accessory structures otherwise authorized under this chapter may be erected or constructed on any single non-conforming lot if all classification requirements other than lot area or width are met. So this means that per our code, construction on a legal non-conforming lot is permitted, but one of the criteria that it points out has to be still met are the setbacks. Part 4 goes on to state that a structure cannot be altered in any way that increases its nonconformity. So not only does it say we have to have it meet the setbacks, but you can't increase an existing nonconformity. But the applicant can seek a variance if they can't meet the setbacks due to some special circumstances that prevent it. So one of the things staff has to look at is what are the special setbacks, or what are the special circumstances? Well, staff looks at several factors in determining this. And some of these are things that commissions may agree with, they may not agree with. So this is staff's opinion based on several things. One of the things that staff looks at are past precedents, including what courts have consistently held. And throughout the years, the courts have consistently held that special circumstances are a hardship, if you have a hardship. So what would be a hardship? A hardship may be that the applicant can't meet the code because of protected wetlands, or that a power line easement prevents them from being able to build the way that they need to build. With regards to what does not constitute a hardship, there's actually case law, some of it local. One case, Metropolitan Dade County versus Rhineberg, showed that disadvantage due to an owner's preference as to what they would like to do with the property is not sufficient enough to constitute a hardship entitling the owner to a variance. So staff looks at various things in determining, are there special circumstances? What are special circumstances? And then, do any of those apply in spirit to the property that's under consideration? So in staff's opinion, staff does not feel that there's a special circumstance that exists, and therefore granting the variance would confer a special privilege on the applicant. So staff does not feel that that criteria is met.
Ryan, would a special circumstance be the additional cost to meet the setback?
Actually, no. There are several, and I actually brought many cases where economics really don't have anything to do with whether or not a variance is granted. When you think about a variance, most variances are granted on properties that already have a structure, they're non-conforming. The applicant is coming forth, and what they're doing is they're asking to do something that is illegal by our code. That's what a variance is. You're asking to do something that the code doesn't allow. So by their very nature, because no one else can do it, variances are they're difficult to get. And so that's why we have the criteria. But the courts have consistently found, in many cases, some of them as local as Ponce Inlet, that economic circumstances are not a reason to approve a variance. Criteria number 4 says that a literal interpretation of the provisions of this subpart would provide the applicant of rights commonly enjoyed by other properties in the same zoning district under the terms of this subpart and would work an unnecessary and undue hardship on the applicant. Staff's narrative is that a literal interpretation of the provisions of this subpart would not deprive the applicant of rights commonly enjoyed by other properties in the same zoning district or work an unnecessary and undue hardship on the applicant. It's staff's opinion that the applicant is able to build the desired addition while meeting the 7.5-foot setback. They may not be able to do it in the exact form or fashion as desired, but there is room to build a reasonably sized addition to the home without violating the required setback. And then there is an Exhibit A Val, can you bring up Exhibit A, please? So this is basically what the applicant is desiring to do. The area in yellow, you can see it continues along the south side of the property and forms, the yellow would be the addition. Then, if you go to the next one, just scroll down to the next option. No, there should be a second within Exhibit A. Just scroll, no. If you go back, just scroll on Exhibit A, right there. Now just scroll. There you go. So it looks a little busy because of the various measurement lines. But there's an area in pink where it's basically, it would be a rectangle, except for where it meets the house. And this area shows that it's 8 feet from the property line, so it's able to meet the side setback on the south. It meets the 20-foot setback in the rear, and it's 5 feet from the structure on the north, which it's required to be. The porch, the wooden porch is going away, but this actually shows that it is possible to build the addition that is desired. This particular one is 306 square feet. I know the applicant is looking for less. The one that they're proposing is only 204 square feet. But it shows that it is possible in some form or fashion, and it might not be in this exact way, to meet the intent of the code and meet the requirements of Section 114. So because of that, staff does not feel that criteria 4 is met. 5, that the variance granted is the minimum variance necessary to make possible or reasonable use of the land, building, or structure. The small wooden structure on the back of the home is slotted to be removed to make way for a new addition. This means that allowing 7.5 feet for the setback and 5 feet for the separation from the garage on the north, an addition approximately 17 feet wide could be built. The rear setback requirement is 20 feet, and due to the shape of the home, it's approximately 35 feet from the rear property line in some areas and 50 feet from the rear property line in others. So given these circumstances, there doesn't appear to be any substantial impediment to meeting the required setback. Again, Exhibit A pointed that out. So, again, staff's opinion would be no. And the last criteria, that the granting of the variance would be in harmony with the general intent and purpose of this subpart and the city's comprehensive plan, and that such variance will not be injurious to the area involved or otherwise detrimental to the public welfare. And simply put, again, it's staff's opinion that granting the variance is not necessary for the applicant to build the addition and meet the requirements. So staff does not feel that that criteria is met. A little bit about the structure itself. The structure it's an off-grade house, so it's not on a slab. It's on basically pillars, and it has a flat roof. So this means that there are no issues related to tying into an existing roof or an existing foundation. The city's chief building official, who is here this evening, has also reviewed the proposal for an addition to the structure and stated that, in his professional opinion, it would not be difficult to construct an addition and meet the required setback. And his statement is attached in the document entitled CBO Opinion. And he is here also this evening to discuss with you any questions that you may have. So based on this, staff does not recommend approval of the requested variance from the requirements of Section 114-765, Schedule of Dimensional Requirements, requiring that principal structures in the R3 medium-density single-family zoning district be a minimum of 7.5 feet from the side property line, or the property located approximately 100 feet south of Ferndale Street on the east side of Magnolia Avenue, and more particularly known as 817 Magnolia Avenue. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Walker, and thank you for the detailed analysis here and for going over it with myself, and I'm sure other commissioners as well. We'll open this up for questions, and I will remind the commission that the debate will happen once there is a motion, so this is strictly for questions. I'll start it off with Brian, can a variance be granted if a property does not meet all 6 requirements?
Whether or not a variance is granted is completely up to the will of the commission. So,
Okay.
yes, if you feel otherwise, the criteria that I gave you and the narrative is staff's opinion. The commission has every ability to say that they completely disagree with staff and to grant the variance.
Okay. Do you have anything to add to that, Mr. Simpson?
Yeah, I was just pulling it up. I think I would word it a little differently, is that, which is it 9476, 9834? I was just trying to pull it up the
What is?
criteria.
What are you asking?
I was just asking, what variant, what's?
Oh, the criteria
Yeah, what's?
is under
It's in the staff report.
Section 82-317.
Okay. So if you look at the way it's worded, it says, criteria for authorization. In authorizing the variance, the commission shall make the following written findings. That special conditions or circumstances exist which are peculiar to the land. That special conditions and circumstances do not result. So you got to look how it's worded. So my response would be, if you go through those 6 and you find one of them it doesn't comply with, no, you can't grant it.
Mm-hmm.
What Brian was saying is, you may disagree with staff's interpretation,
Right.
and he thinks it doesn't comply, but you think it does. But I think if you find one of those 6, they need to meet all 6.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a,
Mm-hmm.
hey, you got 4 of the 6, so you got a majority of them, or
Mhm.
whatever. So I think it needs to meet all of them, but you may come to a different opinion, is what I interpreted Brian to say, that whether or not it does or does not meet.
Okay, and then furthermore, to add upon that question, if we were to approve this tonight, would we have to go one by one to express why we think that it meets that criteria? Because in the staff report it says opposite, or would we have the authority to just vote without having to go one by one?
It would probably be better to say why you think it meets the criteria that Brian said it didn't, just in case it was going to be reviewed. But the applicant's not going to appeal
Right.
his approval.
Approval, right.
So it would be more important to go through and state why you are denying in case the applicant does appeal. And you could say for the reasons cited by Brian.
Right. Okay, thank you. And then my second question is, do you know if any of the neighbors object or oppose this, Mr. Walker?
I have not heard anything from any of the neighbors.
Okay. And the last question is, are you aware, and possibly, I can't bring this in, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Simpson, are you aware of any other houses in the neighborhood that do not conform, or are not conforming? Meaning they were built before our codes and they're not conforming?
I don't know of a specific home, but if I were to guess, I would say that there are other homes in the area that are on non-conforming lots. This is the only one that I've had that's come in and asked to do an addition.
Right, so that's the only reason you're looking, because
Right.
legal, non-conforming, they're legal. But and actually, before I go further, we need to disclose any ex parte communications. I'll start. I spoke with Mr. Moore today, a couple hours ago, just very briefly. He called me a couple times. I called him back today, and very brief conversation, and told you my mind will be made up here. So, did anybody else have any? Yes, Vice
I
Mayor.
met Mr. Donnie Moore at the site, and so I could see it in person.
Okay, anybody else? Commissioner Johnson?
And looked at it as well. My only question was that you already asked, does either neighbor have any complaint?
Okay. Yes, Commissioner Curry?
Donnie Moore contacted me today. I met with him at his request at the site, 817 Magnolia. We really didn't have a lot of conversation about it. It was him just wanting me to come out and look at the site.
Commissioner Daniel, anything?
Just the last time I fed him. That was it. No, I didn't.
I didn't bother you because I knew.
Meaning, did you speak
No.
about the item?
No.
Not at all?
Nope.
Okay, then no ex parte communication from you. Okay, so I have my three questions. Yes, Vice Mayor?
Brian, and I apologize, I didn't ask you earlier because it just popped into my mind. 2 or 3 months ago, we had a variance before us on the 1400 block of Riverside Drive. It's an older house, narrow lot right next to the Capers residence.
Okay.
Remember?
Yep. Yes.
And the minimum setbacks were not able to be met. And then we looked at the surrounding neighborhood and we said, hey, it'd be better if you pushed the house a little bit this way. But if I recall, they wanted to build a bigger house, and if they met all the setbacks, they would have had to build like a 30-foot wide house, 100 feet long. Remember that? And they said they can't do it, and I brought up the case in Ormond where you can do that. And we approved that variance. So I don't remember them meeting, maybe we said they met all 6 up there, but some of that was self-imposed, if I recall. So if we can't approve this one if it doesn't meet all 6, we shouldn't have approved that one if it meets all 6. And sometimes common sense just has to overrule. So that's.
Yeah, I don't remember all the details of that one. I do know, with regard to reviewing variances, one of the things, again, to go to the courts, in a case City of Jacksonville versus Taylor said that an applicant's variance request has to be reviewed on its own merits rather than on the basis of previously approved variances in the jurisdiction. Previously issued variances do not establish controlling precedent or constitute a basis to sustain other variance applications. So I looked at this one very specifically. And you may be absolutely right on the other one, Commissioner. I don't remember all the details of it or all of the
And
criteria.
it just popped into my brain as I'm sitting here right now, so.
But I just, in harmony with this, I just looked at this specific one, and I look at every single one rather than,
Right.
what's been approved in the past. I can't use that in making my recommendation. But again, you as a commission
Right.
do not have to agree with me at all.
I would also point out 82-318, just because it came up, titled hardship, and the code says, financial disadvantages or inconvenience to the applicant shall not in itself constitute conclusive proof of unnecessary hardship within the purpose of zoning. And that's part of the variance. And I think Brian has read some cases
Right.
that kind of said the same thing, but we also have that in our code.
Okay. Any further questions? So if I heard you correctly, Mr. Walker, are you saying you just can't base your finding of facts based on other variances that may or may not have been approved?
Yes,
Okay.
that is correct.
But as I heard earlier from Mr. Simpson, if we approve this, then obviously the applicant wouldn't contest it in court, but in the future, if an applicant came for a different property and they were denied, then that would have the grounds for them to have a lawsuit or take it to the courts against us for not approving that one based on this. But then what I'm asking is you just said that they can't use this as precedent. So we can look at it one by one.
Every variance, just like every special exception, they stand alone, and you look at them on their individual facts. So there's not truly a precedent-setting situation. They very easily could argue that in here as a basis, say, hey, well, you let this other person do it, why not me? What's the difference? But that won't help them when they appeal to the court of law, because the question is there substantial competent evidence to support your decision? That's the question that if it was actually appealed, that would have to be said. And there could be more evidence to support the opposite decision. That doesn't matter. The question is there substantial competent evidence to support the decision you made? Doesn't mean that it could be outweighed by the evidence to go some other way. You could go either way sometimes. There's evidence, substantial competent evidence to rule either way. Then the fact that there's more evidence for a different ruling does not mean your ruling was wrong, as long as there's substantial competent evidence to support your decision.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
I have a question.
Yep.
Mr. Simpson, when you're stating that does not mean common sense as one of those criteria, correct? We can't just say, okay, well, common sense, if you look at it, this is how it should be, and we should allow the variance. Common sense cannot be considered in the criteria.
Well, it's not listed, it doesn't say it that way. Maybe using your judgment to interpret the 6 criteria would be applying common sense, your judgment.
But I want to make sure I'm hearing you correctly. If in this criteria, there are no's for meeting the criteria, then I have to have good substantial evidence to show otherwise why I should vote for it.
I would say you need substantial competent evidence to show that each one of these criteria are met.
Okay, thank you.
I will say this, in ruling, all the years I've been doing this, I've seen the variance criteria applied leniently. I've seen the variance criteria applied very strictly by different boards of the same city over time. And honestly, if you strictly interpret this 6 criteria, seldom would there ever be a variance granted. If you went in and you strictly applied this, because it's really, if you strictly apply it, it's for situations where the city has done something, adopted a rule, changed a rule, taken some land through eminent domain, whatever the case may be, that created a situation that they didn't have anything to do with. And that's really what, if you strictly apply variance, that's what it's for. Because, we say, the apple, for instance, I've always had this question. It's not a self-created hardship. Well, does that mean it's the applicant didn't do it? Or does the previous owner qualify as an applicant? Previous owner could have done something that caused this self-created hardship. The applicant bought the property, knowing the condition. Does that applicant now get to say, well, that was the previous owner did that, I didn't do that? Well, you bought the property knowing the condition. So there's a lot that can go into these things. And there's a lot of judgment, common sense, in how you interpret these rules and how you apply the facts to these rules. And I have seen it done various ways. Lenient, more strict. And it's, one's not wrong, one's not
I'll
right.
go a step farther. If I have my staff that's giving me a report that's basically saying deny, I've got my building official who has also given his opinion professionally to deny and saying that it could be built
A different way.
a different way. Everything could be accomplished a different way. So it's a win-win, in my opinion, if it can still be accomplished. And I also have my Board of Planning and Appeals voting it down 3-2. So for me to turn around as a commissioner and say, okay, well, I'm going to approve it just because I think that it makes sense to bring it out to the non-conforming area so it's symmetrical, if you will, and go against my staff, my building official, and my appointed by us Board of Planning and Appeals. I'd have to have some pretty significant evidence that it should be done otherwise because of that.
There's no question that you have been presented with substantial competent evidence to say no.
Okay?
You also have not been heard from the applicant. Now,
Right.
maybe the applicant, the burden's on the applicant to prove this.
Okay.
Staff doesn't have to prove anything.
Okay?
Right.
The applicant has to burden of proving you these 6 criteria
Okay.
meet. And so technically, because I've often debated in my head, in my mind, I always thought the applicant should go first, because it's their request. And then I thought staff should follow the applicant and say, well, here's our opinion on their request.
And that makes
There's
sense.
not a right or wrong way to
That-
do it.
But
you
that
know.
makes sense.
But me and Brian have debated that. There's not a right or wrong way. It doesn't matter. But you haven't heard from the applicant side.
Right. And I was just gonna see if there was
Maybe
questions for staff.
They have some
first.
very good 6 explanations as to
Okay.
why they think they can present you with substantial competent evidence, and it's not unheard of where there is substantial competent evidence for you to go either way. That can happen.
All right. Any further questions for staff? All right. Thank you, Mr. Walker. And with that, we will invite the applicant up. Just state your name and address for the record, and then you have the floor.
Donnie Moore, 732 Mason Avenue, Daytona Beach. I'm representing the applicant on this matter. To answer your question, Commissioner Curry, the reason that you would go against your planning and appeals board is because they weren't on the site. That was the reason that I took it here, is because I felt like at the planning and appeals board, they really didn't understand what I was trying to accomplish here, what the applicant was asking for. And that's why I asked each of you to meet me individually so that you could lay eyes on the project and understand what really makes common sense here. The issue, in my opinion, is much bigger than this variance. The issue is the entire process. The issue is that you have 6 questions that were written in 1985 by somebody that none of us even know. These questions are antiquated, outdated, and really have no bearing on what's really happening out there. It's so often, and I've been in your seat, and so often you're caught between, your codes and your bylaws and your rules and your regs, and yet your logic and your common sense is telling you exactly the opposite. And unfortunately, I've put you in that position tonight because I believe each one of you that have went out there and looked at this fully understand what is trying to be accomplished here to make this property look more uniform, to give it more curb appeal, and to just make it look not so chopped up on the backside of it. Describe how special conditions and circumstances that currently exist are not the result of actions of the applicant or petitioner. And your attorney said it best. I mean, that right there is, it could be, well, you bought the property and the guy before it did it. I mean, right? So, like, that question shouldn't even be in here. Question 3, explain how granting of the variance request would not confer on the applicant or petitioner any special privilege that is denied by code to other lands, buildings, or structures in the same zoning district. What do you mean, special consideration? What? That's why we're here. That's why we're going through this process. Like, any person in the city can go through this process. So as you can see, there's another question that, what is that even talking about? And I know you didn't write these questions. You didn't come up with these questions. These questions are handed to you from the state. But I think there's even a bigger issue here than this particular variance. And the issue is to look at, hey, it's been since 1985. We're talking almost 40 years that you and Port Orange and Ormond and God only knows how many other cities are using this variance application as a means. Your city attorney is correct. You can exactly do what you know is logic and reasonable. You have the power. If you didn't have the power, I wouldn't be here. I would be discussing this with Brian or Ricky Lee. But I can't convince Brian because Brian doesn't have the power to give me this variance. Only you do. And while Brian presented an excellent case, Brian is bound by his box that was created in 1985. Right? And your staff does an exceptional job. I think your attorney has advised you well tonight. I think your staff has advised you well. I think your Board of Planning and Appeals truly did not see what 3 of you seen on that property. And for that reason, I'm asking that the variance be approved. Questions?
One question for you. Do you know any of the neighbors that object or oppose or support this? Do any of them oppose this?
I haven't heard of any opposition, and there was no opposition that came forward during the Board of Planning and Appeals.
Okay, thank you. Are there other questions for the
You
applicant?
sent out the required
Yes, sir, I
certified
have receipts
radius.
from all the certified letters that were sent out that was required to be done for the variance process.
Okay. Are there further questions for the applicant?
I'm kind of in the dark because you guys got to see it. And
I didn't get to see it. Well, I drove by it, but didn't get out of the car.
I have a question, but I didn't go and actually look at it. And it looks to me like,
Sit up to the microphone, Commissioner.
sorry, it looks to me like it's not building anything any closer to the south border that is already there. It is already approved. It's only going just a little bit further to the back. And Brian himself already stated it's like 50 feet from the back property line. So you're not moving closer to the neighbor at all, any more than the one that's allowed, part that's allowed. So why do you need to offset it? I don't understand that at all. It has no opposition from any neighbors, anybody. Nobody's complaining about it at all, right? And we are up here to exercise common sense. If everybody in the government would exercise more common sense than just go by some outdated rules and regulations, I think we'd be a lot better off anyway. And we're on the side of helping decide what's best for the citizens, the businesses, and the city, where the city staff has to decide what's best they think for the city. So we have to make a decision on common sense as far as I'm concerned on it, and that's what I would do.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. Are there any further questions for the applicant? All right. Thank you, Mr. Moore.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right. Are there any further questions for staff before we open it to public participation? Seeing none, I will open this up to public participation. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to the commission on this item tonight? Going once, going twice, and closed. I close public participation, and I will open the floor for a motion.
I'll make a motion
To
to approve.
approve, that means, okay, that you will approve. We have a motion on the floor to approve the variance. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Now we'll open up debate. The maker of the motion gets to go first. Commissioner Johnson.
My debate.
Yep.
I was going to explain exactly how, the reason that I'll do that, because of the way, it's a common sense look at it, the way it's being built. To me, it looks better, and it's going to improve the property quite a bit anyway. The whole neighborhood
Yep.
will appreciate the way they're improving the property, I believe.
Yes, sir. Vice Mayor, do you have anything, discussion?
Yeah, and I understand the box that we're in here, and that's, when I looked at the plans, this makes perfect sense. And then Donnie called me and asked me to come out and do a visit, and I said, this makes perfect sense. If you look at the proposed building that meets all the setbacks, anyone that moves into that house, the first thing they're gonna say is there's no backyard. I don't live here, there's no backyard. The other one, those red lines go back to the east side of that building, and that black line just goes and it just squares off. And I would be completely against it if the variance was to encroach any more in to the side yard setback. But it's 4.9 feet, and you really can't see it here, and this is why the one, if you guys remember, we did on Riverside Drive, I went out, I looked at it, they wanted more setback this way than that way. It makes sense if you only look at that, but if you had the survey showing the property next to it, there's a house to the south, and then there's looks like a garage apartment coming right along the property line. And there's no windows, that neighbor is going to be most affected, there's no windows facing this way. So it makes perfect common sense, and I know we're not supposed to say common sense, so we can debate the 6 elements. And we've conceded to 1 and 2, but if we go to 6, describe how granting the variance will be in harmony with the general intent and purpose of this subpart of the city's comprehensive plan, blah, 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 blah. And such variance will not be injurious to the area involved or otherwise detrimental to the public welfare. He's not hurting anybody. He's not going, the person he would hurt the most is the guy next to him. And there's distance between this house and that garage apartment behind it. He's not hurting the guy next to him. You go to 5. Describe how the requested variance is the minimum variance that will make possible the reasonable use of the land, building, or structure. Well, he's only asking for 2.5 feet. He's not asking to go right up to the property line. So I'd say he meets that one. So then we got 3 and 4 to debate. Describe how the literal interpretation of the provisions of the zoning regulations would deprive the applicant or petitioner or rights commonly enjoyed by other properties in the same zoning district and would work an unnecessary and undue hardship to the applicant. I don't really understand what half of that means, to tell you the truth. But I know we did this on Riverside Drive 2 or 3 months ago. And there were ways that that building could have been built. It might have been 30 feet wide and 100 feet long. But they built one in Ormond Beach, off of North Beach Street. And we used common sense. If we were in Palm Coast, we wouldn't be here. That's a planned community. Pig farmers 100 and something years ago just started building this place, and it ended up where it ended up. You put a fence up to keep your pig in and keep the other neighbor's pig out. That's how this city was built. And so they didn't think about setbacks and this and that. So out of the 6, I clearly see that he meets 4. Go to, I don't know what number 4 means, so we'll just say he doesn't meet it. But explain how granting the variance request would not confer on the applicant or petitioner any special right, privilege that's denied by code to other lands, building, or structures in the same zoning district. I say he meets that, because if another applicant came up with the same exact situation, I would feel exactly the same way. So out of these 6, the only one that I have any heartburn is 4, and I really don't understand what it's asking me. So I'm going to support this.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. All right. Do you want to go first?
It doesn't matter.
Okay. So, yeah, you have the floor, Commissioner Curry.
Okay, thank
I
you.
have to pull something.
I can appreciate what you're saying, Commissioner. My stance is, and I don't remember the facts of the Riverside Drive situation, so I'm not even going to reference it because I don't know what all the facts were. If I knew I needed to look that up ahead of time, I would have. I know that I have staff that is very qualified and has continued to do an awesome job that is telling me that the criteria is not met. I don't care if our codes are antiquated. If they are, then let's get something done about that. But they're codes we have to go by right now. It's what our rules are. And I understand that symmetrically it makes sense, but I have my staff telling me that it does not meet criteria. I have my building official telling me that it would be much better done the correct way. As a matter of fact, can we get Ricky Lee up here to explain to us his position? I would really like to hear that.
Commissioner, you can, if you request that. Ricky, you can come up. It is in our staff report, though. It is.
I know it is, but I just want to, I read it. I just want to hear from him.
Ricky, if you could come up.
Because he's heard some of the conversations, so I'm sure he can have some input with that. I depend a lot on our staff.
Yes, Ricky Lee, Chief Building Official, City of Holly Hill.
I just want to know what is it of your opinion that this variant should not be approved, or?
It's my opinion, yes, that it doesn't meet the criteria of our codes that we have. Yes, some of them are old, but it can be met by moving it back within the setback. It can be met by going out further to the back, as much as you want to go back. The thing is it's a flat roof. If it was a pitched roof and, can you bring the drawing, not that one, the other drawing?
The proposed.
I just want to use it for a reference. Right there. Where the old house has the rear wall and the left wall, the right wall, the south wall, and the east wall, if this was a pitched roof, that would be a valley there. And I would say, yeah, you would have problems with valleys, having to scissor into them and all, but you're dealing with a flat roof. More than likely, these trusses or rafters go left to right. Same being for the floor joists. It's off grade. They go left to right. And being with a flat roof and having my flat roof myself years ago, it's easier to add on many different other ways than having to follow, dealing with pitches, dealing with valleys, dealing with ridges. The same thing can be met and still be within the setback lines. And going the way Brian had proposed it and all, you wind up with more square footage than what you're coming out with going with the square anyway. My other question is going to be, and I'm going to throw this out there because I've been thinking about this too. Right now, if you approve this variance the way it is, they sell the house in 2 years. New client buys house. They come in and they want to do that right there. They want to go 18 feet out the back. Now they want to take it and run the line parallel. Are you going to perpetuate the variance and letting it go further out at a future time? And that is something to think about with it too. But as it goes right now, an addition can be done without violating the variance.
Okay. Thank you.
Ricky, real quick.
Thank you, Ricky.
Before you go, you're talking about flat roof. What if they, or anybody in the future wanted to do a regular pitch roof?
You could do a pitch roof even off of this. What you would end up with a pitch roof, if you were going with a gable, you would end up with 3 gables on this type of design right here. You would go north-south, all the way back to where it says 9.8 foot. And then you would have a smaller gable going north-south in the back section. And then the last section you would have north-south. Or you could even do a hip roof with it. The easiest way to do a flat roof, again, I had a flat roof when I lived in the Panhandle. It was cheaper for me to put a pitched roof on it than it was at the time after Hurricane Ivan to do a flat roof. You cut the overhangs off, band it, and put your trusses up on top of it. You could do a hip roof, gable roof, mansard roof, modified, anything you want to do with it. In fact, on this one, you would have the same situation, one valley.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Lee.
Okay, thank
Good.
you.
The floor is yours, Commissioner
So,
Curry.
my point is, I've got my staff, I've got my code, I've got my building official, and I have my Board of Planning and Appeals. And I understand they didn't go out to the site, and it is better seeing it on site. But I just think because the same thing can be accomplished, my vote's going to have to be against it tonight.
Thank you, Commissioner Curry, and I understand those points. First and foremost, before I say anything, let me thank staff for the thorough input that you provided, and I want to thank you, and I think that none of us up here with a yes vote is saying by any means that you did anything wrong. In fact, I think we would all agree that you did everything within the legal limits of exactly what we expect you to do. I think that this commission, we pay you to be black and white when you look at things of this nature that are so legalistic, and then give us your opinion of those facts. And, you know, I would just say, Commissioner Curry, that at the end of the day, we're up here, you're exactly right, to listen to our staff. They are experts. That's why we pay them good money to give us our opinion. But the buck always stops here.
Oh,
And I think
absolutely.
that we have to also look at other things, because if it would take away our job position if we just said, whatever the staff says to us, we're going to
Well,
approve.
that's not my point, Mayor. My
Okay.
point is, I have to listen to the material that they give me.
And I just don't want you to feel
analyze-
like you
No, no,
have to
I'm
vote
not.
because they said
I've been
yes.
doing this long enough. I know not to just solely listen to staff. I have to do my own research. However, in this situation, they're much more qualified than I am. And I just feel like instead of saying, okay, you're right, you know, our codes are outdated, our staff doesn't really know what they're talking about, so we're going to grant the variance. I feel their codes, maybe they're outdated, and I agree with you, they need to be looked at. But there are codes. That's what we have to go by. And then if my staff didn't give me the reports that they did, then I could probably have a little bit of leniency towards maybe approving the variance. But
Yep.
given all the data I have, I can't.
And I respect your opinion and your position, and you're exactly right. There's nothing wrong.
Well, I'm sure I'm on the losing end of this one, but I've been there many, many times before.
I have too, but what I'm saying is I respect your opinion, but I think too that it's an unfair characterization of the vice mayor's opinion, and it would be unfair of mine to say that we're just throwing out
make
the
that.
experts, because I did listen to
I'm
the
saying
experts.
what my point is. I never accused either of you of anything.
No, I'm saying, okay. So what I'm trying to say is I respect your opinion. You are making
And I
great points.
appreciate
And when I first read through, I had a lot of the same thoughts that you had. And when I dug through it more and more, and I went through criteria, and I spoke with Mr. Forte and Mr. Walker about this, I did disagree, using my own logic, my own feelings, my own intuition. But I did put a lot of stock into what they're saying. So I am listening to them, but I also know that I do not have to say yes to what they do. I think at the end of the day, we are the check on any type of government official, no matter who it is beneath us, because the people check us. And so what I'm trying to get at is some of the points that Vice Mayor made are spot on. We have a Frankenstein zoning here, as you said, plan unit or plan development cities like Palm Coast, they'll never have this problem. In fact, we won't ever have this problem with any new buildings. Any buildings that have been built since 1993, they're going to meet our setbacks. When it comes to this, and I looked at the proposed to conform. It's up on the screen right now. In my opinion, that's actually worse than squaring it off. Now, I'm in real estate, and if I was showing this house, honestly, I don't really understand what use of the rooms would be, and I'm not here to dictate that. But when we look at laws, and we're already at a 4.9 setback currently, are we making it worse? And I think that would be worse if they had to put on an addition, which I'm assuming they have to, otherwise they wouldn't be asking us to do it. So in my opinion, that's just right off the bat, but I understand that we have to base it on these criteria. And so I struggled with looking at it from a common sense standpoint of 2.5 feet of variance, and then with the legalistic approach, which you're taking, which I'm not knocking at all.
No, I don't take it that way.
And so, you know, Vice Mayor, you brought up a good point about the Riverside Drive variance. That variance, those setbacks were 10 feet.
Right.
And we went to 5 feet. So we actually gave them 5 feet of variance. Not that that dictates on what we should or could do here, but as I go through the criteria, I had some of the same findings. And when I look at criteria 3, in the finding of facts, it states applicant can seek a variance if applicant feels they cannot meet setbacks due to some special circumstances that prevent it. But if we look back at criteria 2, we are saying that they do meet some special circumstances. In my vision, a special circumstance is that there's an existing wall already at 4.9. If they were asking to go to 4 feet towards the setback, or 3 feet or 2 feet, I would be wholeheartedly against this. I just would. But the fact is when we look at why it's 7.5, and then it's already 4.9, that's how far away it is from the neighbors. So I don't think we are adding to that. That's just my opinion. So, and then furthermore in criteria 3, that no special privilege, because there's no special privilege given because it already exists at 4.9 feet from the property line currently. When we look at criteria 4, it talks about unnecessary and undue hardship. And I know that we talked about economics cannot be used in that unnecessary and undue hardship, but to me, economics is a hardship. And maybe my opinion isn't correct on that, but for criteria 4, that is where I'm at. If it costs more, and I would venture to guess by any means possible that what's proposed here to be conforming would definitely cost more. Furthermore, I think that if the conforming lot was done, the undue hardship that would be happening in this situation would be the loss of the use of the backyard. You would have barely any backyard back there. I'm not knocking what you put together, Ricky. You did it within the means of what you needed to do, and I don't disagree with that. I'm just saying that I think that in my vision, that presents an unnecessary and undue hardship. When we look at criteria 5, the variance granted is minimum variance necessary to make possible the reasonable use of land, building, or structure. The word reasonable use of land, I'll just make it short. I think it's reasonable, 2.5 feet, to be able to make all the sense in the world to make this a reasonable action by squaring off the back of this. And number 6 is, it says, will not be injurious to the area involved or otherwise detrimental to the public welfare. I asked if the neighbors opposed it, and there have been no neighbors to come and oppose it. Furthermore, when you look at this from the street, nobody's going to even know that this addition was put on, meaning because it's not going any further. So who would be affected are the people abutting this property, and they're not opposing to it. For that reason, I would find that it's not injurious to the people around in the area or otherwise detrimental to the public welfare. Furthermore, and it's not in a criteria, but I asked if there are any other in the neighborhood non-conforming lots, and I believe there are. And so, you know, at the end of the day, I think that we're up here to call balls and strikes, but we also really got to use some of our reason and blend it with the legal aspects. And so for those reasons, I'm going to be in support of this variance tonight. And, you know, and look, we'll take every single variance one by one on the merits of it. But if this was in front of me for another property that was the exact same reasons, my vote would be yes. So for those reasons, I will be voting yes tonight. And the last bit of debate we have is Commissioner Danio.
Commissioner Danio is, I'm not going to say nearly as much as you just did. You hit them all, but unfortunately, each case variance is a case by case. you gotta look at it, and all the mumbo jumbo, and some of it you understand, some of you don't. And the guys are in the, they're doing their job 110%. And yes, there are other ways and everything else, but like you say, it's like, is it aesthetically, is it reasonable, and it's not, not looking at it and just looking at it on paper, it doesn't seem like it really would be that reasonable and that sensible to do it any other way than just to kind of continue it, because, like you say, at the end of the day, it's not going to look like it was even built on, so I'm going to support it too.
Is there any further discussion? All right, we're going to take a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed?
Nay.
The motion carries 4-1. All right, now we'll move to communications, and we'll start with our city manager, Mr. Forte. We'll wait a second. Thank you. Bye-bye. All right, floor is yours, Mr. Forte, for communications.
Okay, thank you. Well, while we're off that heated debate, good debate, I'm going to bring something up that the Board of Planning and Appeals has asked of Brian. I have an opinion about it. I'm going to throw it out to you, and Brian could update you a little bit more on it. But with regards to variance requests, they're asking for the staff to make the final decision on some of these variance requests.
Interesting.
Small ones, some small. So, I'll let Brian explain if there's
What
any more
dictates
detail.
small?
I don't know.
This was 2.5 feet.
6 feet, right?
Well, one thing I was whispering to Joe when you
What's the
started.
matter? We don't listen to him anyway.
Quickly about
He's
variance.
smiling.
I've actually had this case, I think 2, maybe 3 of you said it, and I've had it always in my mind, is extending a structure into the setback, but no further than the structure already is in the setback, is a variance needed. You're not encroaching any further into the setback. That could be, this particular case, you extend the wall in the same direction, you don't encroach any further than a wall already exists. It could also be adding a second floor to an first floor that has encroachment. It could also be enclosing a porch, a deck. You've already built the deck, it's been approved. Do you want to enclose the deck? You're not going to encroach anymore. I've always kind of debated in my head, I could go either way on it. Is that technically a variance? That's just something I sat here and thought, because I know 2 or 3 of you kind of alluded to the fact that, well, they're not encroaching anymore. It's a straight line. Well, so if they're not encroaching anymore, technically is a variance needed? I mean, these are your rules, they're not state rules.
Scott?
But I think that's why I wouldn't be in favor of staff doing it. I think each one is case by case, because you just said what I said. You didn't encroach anymore. However, I might have felt different about this variance if the neighbor to the south was a little further to the west, and now we're encroaching on a window or a bedroom or something for that next door neighbor's house. So that's why I think they all have to be
Case by case.
case by case.
So Scott, what I was going to say is, our city, as great as it is old. And a lot of it is just, Brian and Ricky, they suffer from previous mistakes, putting us kind of in a position sometimes, but.
And it's not always mistakes, previous mistakes, it's
Well,
just, we adopt new, things were built a long time ago.
Yeah.
And then we change our rules. And then all of a sudden, okay, now we have to apply new rules to what's on the ground. And it
So you
creates issues.
try to make the
All right,
best
so
of.
then go look at it and then make a common sense judgment. It's not getting any closer at all.
And this 6 criteria that's in your code, I think Don, the president, doing the presentation alluded to it, it's nothing unique. Every jurisdiction has the same 6 criteria. We're not unique in that regard. So you can pretty much look at any jurisdiction and they have all the same 6 criteria.
But I think what you said earlier in your comments, Scott, was that you've seen the variance rules applied very strictly and very leniently sometimes, and that's the case by case. And I think that's what I appreciate about this body, is that we do take the time to review them case by case, and try to make it right.
I would like to know what the purpose in the BOPA is. If we're not going to let them make decisions, or if we're not going to take their advice into play at all, what is their real purpose?
So
To just have a committee sit up and listen to all the cases so they can report back to us, but we're not going to take that into consideration?
In some ways, they are our local land planning agency for comprehensive plan issues, so it's a
I
requirement.
mean, do they really matter?
Under that regard.
I would think they do,
Yeah.
but I'm not sure now.
They are, you're correct, they are considered competent substantial evidence. Well, what their opinion comes here as competent substantial evidence. What y'all do with it is up to you. But it is competent substantial evidence.
Yeah, I would say, I understand the question, and I served on the Board of Planning Appeals.
Well, no, I'm not trying to demean what they do.
No, and-
But
and-
if we're not going to listen to our board at all, that's my point. Why do we even have them? Why not just have the cases come straight to us? I mean, what would the purpose be?
I don't know if it's a rhetorical question, but the answer to that.
No, I'm saying why, seriously.
Okay, I'll answer.
Why do we
Yeah.
have the Board of Planning and Appeals if we don't have to listen to what they say? Why can't those just be brought directly to us?
Well, here's my opinion on it, and first off, it's a statutory requirement, but for me, it is that I do take in consideration their opinion and our staff's opinion, expert opinion. In fact, I listen to the Board of Planning Appeals meetings as
Yes, sir.
well. So I hear all of that debate. And so what's good is I like that extra layer. In fact, things get ironed out through that process. And I think that it's always good to have more minds on that. And if a board is 5-0, adamantly against something or for something that comes to us, I think that that's very powerful. If you listen back to the debate on this one, it sounded the whole time like it was going 3-2 the other way, like it was going to get approved. And at the last minute, the third person went to the other side.
Right.
So I think in this case, it's not so cut and dry. And so I take that as a whole of what their opinions were. And then I just disagreed with the last one of the vote. And I got to tell you, like I said, your position was strong. It was good. And that's, I teetered on both sides many times researching this.
Again, it's not a rhetorical question. It was a serious question. Because I've been on this commission for 11 years now, and through my 11 years, I can't say that there's been hardly any times that we've ever went against our staff and Board of Planning Appeals so hard and heavy. I don't remember in my 11 years this happening like that. And I just am trying to understand it.
I hear your concerns, but I have to agree with what the mayor said, is that if the decision from the planning and appeals was 5-0, that's a clear decision. It's 3-2, it can't get any closer than that. So they weren't certain.
No, but then we have to take this into consideration.
Right.
So when you compile the Board of Planning and Appeals, who we nominate and have them sit on the board for us, when we do that, we're depending on their insight into looking, because some of them are into construction, some of them are into that stuff. I don't know anything about that stuff. And then we're supposed to also take the insight, and this time we happen to have Ricky Lee, which we usually don't have Ricky Lee, but this time we did. So I had an additional staff member, and I just don't, I guess I just don't understand, so I'm going to shut up.
Well then, and I hear your frustrations, but let's go one step further. Eliminate all variances in the city of Holly Hill.
And make it up to the staff.
No, just no variances. There's no variances. The code is the code. There's no variance. Then
Now, do I agree we need to look at the code? We need to look at the code,
Then it's black and
yes.
white. But the problem is, we've changed the codes from Wild Wild West, no codes. Now we have codes, but the problem is, like this house cannot conform. What our attorney said, if they want to put a second story on this house, they would have had gone through the exact same process. Does that make any
Well, they
sense?
could have conformed.
No, if they wanted to put a second story on this
Oh,
house.
no, I'm not
in the
saying with
exact
the
same
second
footprint,
story, that wasn't.
Exact same footprint, they would have had gone through, and guess what? I believe the decision would have been the same. And I believe staff's report would have been exactly the same, because in Brian's opinion, it didn't meet it. And so, I think the vote would have been exactly the same if it was a second story, and I would have voted the exact same way. So I think what's great about this city, what's great about this commission and staff is that there's no cookie cutter, because we're not a cookie cutter community. And so we can't just let staff make all those cookie cutter decisions. That's my opinion.
And I think to add to that is just, look, I hear your frustration. I'm a lot of times on the losing end of the vote, and
Mayor, my first 3 years here,
I know,
was
I
losing
remember.
every time, but that's
Yep.
not the problem.
I
I
remember.
could care less about losing. It's just, I want to know there's some consistency in what we're doing up here. And after 11 years, I would think there'd be a little more consistency.
But what I would say is, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, is just that the argument is that if our staff tells us to say yes to it, we say yes. And I know you have not done that. And so
No.
I have. What I will say is, I take their expert testimony into consideration. I do.
We will
I definitely do.
professionally agree to disagree this discussion, or agree to agree. Whatever it ends up being, I don't know, but I'm good.
Okay, all right. So we were talking about the Board of Planning Appeals.
I was looking for a
And-
yes or a no.
I know.
No.
All right, so, well, Penny might be a yes.
No,
No.
I do not agree with that.
So you do not want the
I do
staff
not
to just approve
No,
it?
no, because I would hope the process would
That's
work
what I
at
wrote
some
down.
point.
Is that with the capital? And
I have an exclamation point next to it.
that's what I thought.
Well, the whole,
Should staff make these decisions?
No, not
On small.
very minor, like
but the
Like
whole name of the
10%
board
setback, a
is
half.
Board of Planning and Appeals. So the appeals process
remember
is
where
to
it also came
override
up? There
what
was-
staff has said. So there's no need for a planning and appeals board if you're going to let staff make all the.
It would only be on 10%, 10%
or
variance.
whatever percentage it was, but you know where it came up? There was a, I believe, didn't it come up, Brian, because somebody needed a handicap?
Was there a no-brainer for the guy that put the
I
handicap?
don't remember.
ramp in?
It was a no-brainer. It was
Oh,
like,
yes.
somebody needed a
Yeah, yeah,
handicap
yeah.
ramp, and it went
Yep.
like 6 inches over.
Yeah,
And
That's right.
That's what was the impetus of this.
You're right.
Right.
It's been lingering for since
that was a
summer.
couple years.
Well, no,
I think that
thought
was
it
probably
back
2
in the
years
summer.
ago.
That was earlier this year, I think.
Yeah. So
Longer
that's
than
where
that.
it kind
How
of
long
came
ago?
from. Like, why are we even taking the time and making this person go through, spend $300, do the mailing, go through all this where we know it qualifies? And that's kind of where this discussion came from. But I sense no. I got that. So that's pretty clear.
We want to put the BOPA to work.
What else you want to know, Joe?
Hear all
All
the
right,
variances.
on the good news, the fire station, we had our construction meeting yesterday. Was it yesterday? My gosh. We had a construction meeting yesterday, and as I'm talking to them, I said, well, when are we going to schedule a groundbreaking? And then, Mayor, you texted me like shortly after that. So I want to find out from the
little late.
commission, when do you want to do a groundbreaking?
It's already broken.
Yeah, but
this is
usually
actually-
though, you have it cleared and
This
then
is
you get
actually the best
shovels
time
up
you could put
there.
a shovel in the ground.
Yeah.
But if you pick a day and a time, we'll go ahead and make it happen.
Okay, yeah, let's do it. Can you just get with our schedules, or do you want to set one
So
now?
much easier to do when five
All
of you
right.
together.
It's like a weekday, 9 a.m. somewhere.
Whatever you want.
Here's the only thing, Joe, is we want to have those legislators there. And so we
Right,
really
so you
need
want
to
me to-
check when they're going to be in Tallahassee.
All right, so I'll check when those three will be available. Now, they may be doing a groundbreaking at the closing.
Yeah. It's going to
But
be
I'll
after
find out
January
from
then,
those three.
probably.
Let's take a look at that.
Okay. And the last reminder, I don't know if anybody's going to bring it up, is you have to select the Citizen of the Year.
Yep, I have it on mine.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Simpson?
Merry Christmas.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that-
See everybody Saturday?
Merry Christmas. Mrs. Manning? Nope. Ms.
forgot-
Walker, do you have anything further for us?
We forgot the Waste Pro discussion.
Oh, yes, that's right. All right, you can bring that up now.
Okay, so we hired Redmond Consulting to evaluate our commercial accounts and find out what the differences were. And there were a number of them. I don't have the total number, but, I mean, I have it here, I just don't know what the number is. But we're looking at what could be a potential gain for the city of about $7,700 per month, which is good. But we also show a number of losses over this period of time that we really should credit back to the commercial property owners or the tenants. So the dilemma that I have is, some of these are pretty big numbers. They could be as high as $18,000, for example, as a credit that we may owe.
How far back going?
How far back did we go?
Go back beyond 3 years.
3 years.
The actual change of service for 3 years.
Yeah, because we may be able to collect in a 3-year arrears period. I'm going to stall until the other two come back.
Okay.
One more can leave and we'll be done.
You leaving?
I think the vice mayor might call a 5-minute recess.
I figured we'd be done in 5 minutes.
Oh, did everybody go?
No.
We're boarding on no quorum.
We'd have to rewrite the criteria.
Anybody else need to go? No?
I raised.
Now you got me thinking about it.
Run.
They said no.
It's true.
Yeah, I raised the question. Yeah, they said no. John said no.
What did I say no to?
Well, they quickly said no to staff approving the minor variance. But then my question about if we're going in the same straight line or if we're just going up, can we make a decision, we could amend the code to say that doesn't require a variance, and I took y'all's comments to say no. It needs to come on a case by case.
I think it needs to come on a case, but yeah, my concern is that,
House speed
how
closer.
far back does that wall go?
Yeah. Only reason I raised it would be, if Brian agreed, he could have guidance on if it was always gonna come here and y'all were always of the opinion, as long as you stay in a straight line, we're good with the variance, and you don't encroach any more into the setback or into whatever the nonconformity is. You don't make the nonconformity larger, then we wouldn't make people go through that variance process. But y'all want to look on a case-by-case basis, which is fine, sure, your choice.
I would be more in favor of something like we do with Joe, as far as giving him like authority up to a certain, giving Brian authority up, like this,
6
ramp
inches.
thing,
We'll give you
6-inch
6
ramp.
inches.
Yeah, I mean, something like that. Don't even waste
Now,
our
y'all
time.
already said no. So, now you want to bring it back? So whatever y'all want to do, it's your rules. We just play with it and
Pin's dead. As soon as he gets back, I'm leaving.
I told you to go. This might be longer, yeah.
Get ready to get up when you went out. I'm
Oh.
like, "Ah."
Sorry, I should have called a recess.
So out of these solid waste accounts, there were a number that were undercharged and a number that were overcharged. So we believe that moving forward, we'll be able to collect $7,700 a month more by correcting these accounts on an ongoing basis. To balance out what is owed versus what needs to be credited, it could be a difference of $80,000 to $98,000, meaning that's what we would end up receiving if everybody that owes us money pays that money. So my recommendation to Michelle was that we'll go ahead and send a bill out, an invoice out to the businesses that owe the money and say there was an error, this amount of money is owed, if you can't pay it now, we'll put you on a 12-month payment plan. See what we get back. Depending upon the response, we may send a second request, but then stop it there. So hopes that we would balance out. Now, as I was mentioned earlier, we have one request that could be as high as $18,000, and that's on a condominium in the city that I called for a meeting with the president of the HOA to go over what that is, and And that's where we found that we're charging them for a certain amount of dumpsters and hauls, which is different than what they actually have on site. But there's no record of when they went to what's on site. So I don't know if it happened a year ago or 10 years ago. I just don't know. So I want to talk to them about that, and we'll figure something out moving forward. So that's a correction that we want to make, and I just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention. But while I'm on that subject, and we've been talking a little bit with Bill Redmond and the potential of revisiting the Waste Pro contract, we're making pennies on a toter, literally pennies on a toter, not even $1 compared to what we're being charged. So we're going to come back with some recommendations we're going to have a work session in January, and that work session is primarily to talk about options of renewing the Waste Pro contract for the continuing 3 years that we have, plus another 10, so a 13-year contract. So when we have all the data, we're going to come to you with a work session in January, but at that time, I'm going to also talk to you about the possibility of an increase in solid waste rates effective probably in February, just so that we can start to catch up on some, diminishing returns that we're starting to see.
When you say toter, do you mean residential?
Yes.
If a business has a toter, is it charged the same or is it charged differently?
Michelle, is a commercial toter different? It is more on a commercial toter. Yeah. Commercial toters pay a little bit more.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Can we talk about that for a minute?
Yeah, go ahead.
Just from a business owner's perspective and a consumer's perspective, if we've identified that we overcharged people for the last 3 years, I wholeheartedly agree that we need to refund 36 months worth of money to them.
Yep.
But if we've undercharged people for the last 36 months, I don't think we can go back 36 months and collect it. I think it's shame on us.
Legally, we could ask for it. Now, how far, like I said, I'm just going to make 2 requests.
I-
I'm not going to go to collections.
I don't even think we should request it. I don't think you should go back more than 12 months, because you're going to make up $7,700 a month in additional revenue, which is almost $100,000 a year. So if it was my business and I overcharged people, I would pay them every dime I owed them. But if I undercharged them, I would call it even and I would set it at 0 today. And I know it's taxpayers' money and it's a whole different thing, but I don't think we should go back 36 months in the arrears. It could be a chunk of money, and the people in the utility billing department are going to come unglued when these people call and yell at them. What do you mean I owe you $3,000? That's just how I feel about it.
Yeah.
I know
That's my concern.
it's money. I don't know where that line is. The credit, 100% back. I don't know the accounts receivable, how far we go back and try to collect that.
That was my concern too, and I said to Joe that, yeah, we're gonna have some upset business owners, and rightfully so. If I had a business along US 1 and I got called and said I owe $10,000 or whatever it is, I'd be pretty upset.
It's shame on us. We didn't bill them.
Right.
I'm not going to pay it if I don't get a bill.
And the thing is, though,
I don't like to pay when I do get a bill.
and my thing to that, when I brought that up, was you're exactly right. It's taxpayers' money. But, and as I thought more and more about it, we weren't spending any taxpayers' money. It was money that we just never billed in. And so if that money came in, it's going to filter through this place and that place, and it wouldn't have affected our budget anyway. So it's not as if we're taking, taxpayers' money. It was shame on us. It was an oversight that we did not catch due to the complexity of how it's built, and I feel the same way.
I just don't know what that, I don't know what that number is. How far do you go back?
I was okay with sending out one notice and, talking to people, but it's tough because I know a lot of businesses are struggling, and I know if they get hit with a whatever amount of bill, no matter what it is, how many thousands, it could be very, very detrimental, and at the end of the day, it was our fault.
How many are there, Joe? How many businesses?
Well, I think the loss in revenue is about 35,000. Does that sound about right?
There's 27 accounts.
Sorry, Michelle, can you come to the mic just because we're recording? Thank you.
There are a total of 27 accounts that we underbilled and 4 accounts that we overbilled.
So out of the 27, what's that number that we underbilled?
80,000.
80,000?
Going back 3 years.
So we, over 3 years? We're going to more than make that up in 1 year in the additional revenue that we just found. So I don't think we should go back and charge it.
At all?
I don't think we should.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same thought process. How does the rest of the commission feel?
It's like sending them a letter saying I had a rate increase 3 years ago, but I forgot to tell you.
Yeah.
You won't pay the difference.
Now pay your Florida Power and Light bill or we're going to cut it off.
Right. And by the way, there's no money to be written off because we didn't budget this money. It's just now we're realizing, oh, wait, we could have billed 80,000 more over the last 3 years. Am I correct in that? I mean, other than we have to credit back those people, which we should because we owe them money, we charge them too much.
That's 4 people,
Excuse
4
me?
accounts.
4
Correct.
accounts.
4 accounts.
For what?
We
For
over-
crediting.
Right.
And we need to give
But
that
that's all
back.
we do, just 4 accounts versus the other 27.
Right, we got to give the money back. Yeah.
No, I'm
We
just saying,
overbilled
it's
some of
not
them.
as complex as having 27 times.
Oh, yeah.
It's, it's 7, almost 7
six.
times less.
6
Yeah.
accounts.
65,000.
6 accounts,
For what? For the credit? We need to credit?
yeah.
Okay, so 6 accounts, that's not very many.
So it's the difference between what Waste Pro was billing us and we were billing customers.
Right. But our budgets were still balanced.
Yes.
So that's my point is that I'm asking, do we need to go back and rectify that at all? Or no, is it just we didn't bill them?
My concern is that we didn't bill them, but we were paying on their behalf.
We
then-
paid Waste Pro, but we didn't charge the customer.
Right, right. So it's subsidized by
Pro-
all the other payers?
Waste Pro provide the service,
Waste Pro provided
Yes.
the service.
okay, so they're entitled to payment.
So then, if we did charge them anything, it should be the direct costs that we paid, as opposed to our premium that we put on top of it to the commercial users. If we did.
We're not
if it's
even having a
commissioned.
premium. Joe said we're only making a buck.
No, that was on the toters, but commercial, we
Oh.
are making money. And these are all commercial accounts, correct?
These are the commercial
Yes.
accounts, right?
Okay. So could you find out what that direct cost was to us that we
Yes.
paid on behalf of them?
I can tell you that our current markups are between 12 and 25%, depending upon what the service is.
Okay. So roughly 40 grand. So if the commission decided not to request that from the businesses, then is there any auditing fixes that we need to do to correct that, or is it just our mistake, and from now on, we're billing the correct one?
I would just disclose the information. I wouldn't make an entry because, as you mentioned, it's not something that we were billing and then lost.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Well, that complicates it more, but I don't know if that changed your opinion, Vice Mayor, or if any other commissioners have an opinion on how you'd like to see it done.
I kind of feel the same way, it'd be like you said, shame on us. I mean, not necessarily us or them or anybody else, just it happened.
It'd be different if they weren't paying their bill. They were paying the bill they were billed.
Right.
Right now, I have to find out how long
Yeah.
it's been.
Or if they were trying to get one over
I
on
think
us,
it's,
they snuck a couple toters on or whatever,
Right.
then they should pay for it.
What are you gonna do if they don't pay? You gonna send them a threatening letter?
no,
No. His proposal is to send 2 letters. If they don't pay it, then they don't pay it.
The people who do pay will be really pissed if they find out.
yeah.
That's true too, Scott.
Okay, so, while we're doing this, I'll just say that this is, we're finding these errors, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
I don't want you to think staff has failed. Yeah, this staff has actually gone back because these accounts, I couldn't tell you the last time they were actually audited or even reconciled on a monthly basis. So now we are going to be reconciling this on a monthly basis. I mentioned to some of you also the credit, we had a $56,000 credit that we owed to Metro Electronics because the deduct meter wasn't being deducted from the water meter that was going to their tower. So that was another error that we had found, and we had to make it right. We had to correct it, especially moving forward, but we owed it a credit. So I want to make sure that I disclose those things to you so that you're aware of it, so.
Yep.
I think that's it.
It's a positive thing to find those in the matter of that we're looking for them and we need to continue to, and that's the whole purpose of the audit.
Right.
Thank you for finding that. Thank you to staff for providing that. But at the end of the day, I do think that we should probably bite the bullet on it because it was our fault. That's just my stance. But you could talk one-on-one to the commissioners and decide that, Mr. Forte.
I think I kind of see a consensus here, though.
Okay. Mr. Simpson? Or is that everything?
That's it for me, yes.
I think I already.
Oh, yeah, you did. All right. And so we also have to do Citizen of the Year. I don't know if anybody thought of any names. I wanted to throw out my two again. By the way, John, did you talk to the Chamber Board if they're going to do a Business of the Year, or can we do it this year?
They are doing a business of the year.
Oh, man.
Well,
Did they already choose it?
They nominated the
choose it.
same one.
Who is
Huh?
it?
They nominated the same one.
Who? Oh,
Carmen,
is it Carmen Ruiz? Good. Did you nominate her?
there was a strong suggestion.
Good. Well, good. So she'll be our Business of the Year. Did they?
She doesn't know it,
Oh, she doesn't know yet.
so don't write it in the paper.
All right. Yeah. All right, good. So for Citizen of the Year, I would throw out Leslie Graham again. She's volunteered at many events. She was just at the other night. We had the Elf movie out here with Movies with a Cop, and unfortunately halfway through it started raining, and so they had to cancel it because of the equipment out there, and there was this huge storm coming, and suddenly, right when they packed everything up, the rain stopped, and probably could have continued, but that's not on the police's fault. We had to shut it down, protect that equipment. People weren't unhappy, but it was, I gotta say, Chief, it was the best one that I've been to. All of the kinks had been worked out. It was like a well-oiled machine. The sound was perfect. The screen was perfect. It was by far the best time. They had tons of popcorn, hot dogs, drinks, snacks, hot cocoa. My kids had an awesome time, so thank you to the police department for that. And so Leslie Graham was out there with her husband again, volunteering to do that. So I'd put her name forward, and I'm interested to hear of any other citizens that's out there doing some good work for us.
I'm sorry, I thought at the last meeting we talked, there was no sense of urgency when we were going to bring it up. I thought we were bringing it up after Christmas, so that's my problem.
Okay.
Sorry.
So it's all right.
But, you know,
Anybody?
with the movie with the cops, you know, a whole different side of it. I think we're at a point of diminishing returns with that.
Yeah.
When you look at the effort that the staff puts in,
Not worth it.
and there's I think 42 people showed up.
Yeah.
I was coming, but they were gone before I got here because it rained. But the time, the energy, the staff, it's just, when you have more staff and volunteers than people there, you might be doing something wrong. Not that there may not be an interest, they may not doing anything wrong, there's no interest.
It could be the timing, too.
And I think the community has spoken on this one. We've done a number of these, and the attendance just isn't there.
It could be just a spring or fall thing for a month or two.
The problem is it's the daylight,
Daylight.
now's the time to do it because
Yeah.
it gets dark early.
Because it's
Yeah,
early.
that's true, too. But
Instead
it's
of
the
9.
holiday season, everybody's at it, so.
I don't know, I'm sorry I interrupted you.
No, it's tough. I mean, public participation is tough even at these meetings. So it's tough to get people out. I agree. So does anybody have any ideas for Citizen of the Year or want to throw anybody out or?
I wasn't here last meeting, and
Oh.
I thought it was last meeting,
Oh,
and I thought, well,
okay.
they picked somebody.
Yeah.
Never really thought about it.
So you want to kick it down till everyone come with a name by the first meeting in
I
January?
mean, I'm ready to vote for Leslie right now if y'all want to go with that. But if you guys think you have someone in mind that you want to do, then we can do that. But I can't make a motion, so.
I'll make a motion that we have a time certain to vote on this, the first meeting in January.
Well, don't make it a motion, just give direction.
All right, I'll give
Withdraw the
direction. Can we
motion.
do that? Can we do that?
Yeah. All right, so it'll be on our first meeting in January, on our regular city commission meeting. All right. And we are making that decision then.
That decision.
So-
Good, bad, or indifferent?
Nobody has anybody, it's Leslie. I just need a motion. Okay, that's all I have tonight, and we will start with the vice mayor tonight.
I'm glad we talked about pickleball parking. Just a lot of good stuff going on the past week, you know, there was a tournament all last weekend, great art show at Sunrise Park. I don't think parking was an issue, they were shuttling people back and forth, so just a lot of good things going on, a lot of, unfortunately, this time of year brings out the best in people and the worst in people. Thank Commissioner Curry for coming out for the Community Christmas Club on Saturday at R&R. We packed, we have 1,000 families will be affected, but we packed 950 boxes. There's 50 other boxes that don't get boxed, that just get take as a bulk donation. So it was great. We partnered with Second Harvest Food Bank this year. I've been volunteering on this organization since Commissioner Curry got me involved about 10 years ago, maybe. And somehow I was put on the board, and then somehow 3 months later, I am the co-chair of the event. But last year, they boxed 750 boxes, and the cost was about $27,000. This year, we bought food for 1,000 homes, and it was $24,000 because we purchased from Second Harvest Food Pantry instead of purchasing from a retailer. So we cut out the middleman. It was great. We fell about $3,000 short in donations, in case anyone wants to kick some money in. So we overspent what we collected. But it's a great community event. Ormond Beach, Holly Hill, Daytona, South Daytona, Port Orange, and New Smyrna are all recipients of the food. Daytona Beach Housing Authority receives about 400 of the boxes. They give us the lists. And the victim advocates from the individual cities get us lists from people in their community. And Mandy, who's our victims advocate, does a great job of that. So I want to thank her for all her hard work, too. So that's it. Merry Christmas.
Good stuff. The only reason I couldn't be there was I was coaching first grade soccer that morning. But I did go to R&R and thank them personally and gave them a presentation a couple days prior. So
Good.
Thank you for all your work doing that, and you, Commissioner Curry, as well. Your turn, Commissioner Curry.
I don't really have anything, just wish everybody a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
All right, Commissioner Daniel.
Ditto. Don't forget the reason for the season.
Yeah. All right, Commissioner Johnson.
You'll have a CPO meeting. This month from last week, it was next door to the Thanksgiving Day, I think it was, so they moved up to the 5th or 6th of December. There was a few good things about it. Then I kind of watched the budget of what they're spending and all, and each year they have on like $100 and something million on our part of our area. 100 something million to 300 something million or so. Then I looked at 2027, 800 and something million dollars. I checked on that, and that's because of the interchange.
Oh, right.
US 1, and it's starting construction in 2027. Which is coming to improve. So LPG is coming. They moved the Maytown Road, moved it back to 2029 for some reason. I think maybe they don't have it funded or something. But at least they're coming along and doing something. Now, it seems like the DPO is moving and doing things. So is DOT, and I like it. Next year, I think we're going to have to discuss what they're going to do about letting electric cars drive on the roads for free, you know what
Oh, they started billing them
I mean? Huh?
$200 a year. They're billing them $200 a year
$200 a year? So what
in
is it?
place of the gas tax.
When you buy your license tag?
It's going to go up, too.
Yeah.
The other thing is I finally got tonight, Brian brought me my CO for my property on Noble Road at the Lucian Sports Center. And I
Congrats.
had three city officials come and inspect it for me, top level city officials I might add. And all three approved the city manager, I had the city planner, and I had the chief building official. And I really, really appreciate it, Ricky, that you pointed out one safety feature that I missed. I must have spent 40, 50 hours putting safety devices, building things and putting on that for it, and you pointed out the one that you didn't think the railing was quite high enough. So I did build a higher railing on the outer wall and the gate both. So now the people that stand up on it feel more comfortable because the railing's higher. I thank you, Ricky, for that. I missed out on that. But I got them all working, everything's working great, and I'm so glad I was actually forced to build it because I really like it, and I use it myself, you know, because I got a bum knee, it's hard to climb the stairs. But I appreciate everything everyone does here, and have a great, 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 great Christmas and great New Year's, and we won't be together again until next year.
Yeah.
Oh, Mr. Mayor.
Yep.
Don't forget, we have the Volusia League of Cities dinner we're hosting at Pictona. If you're bringing your spouse, you owe Valerie money, so bring her a check.
So that's,
Thursday,
tomorrow,
2 days.
Not pay at the door like usual?
No, you got to pay in advance.
Oh, okay.
Day after tomorrow, and then we have Scott's party on Saturday.
All right. Will everyone be there on Thursday?
Yeah.
Yes? All right. Is there any further business before us? Seeing none, this meeting is adjourned.